Really. You can't argue with that logic, sir. Shit. 97-1 is great odds compared to some of the shit we've gotten into, Adams observed with a smile. We jump in, Colonel? The look on her face as she leaned over the edge of the shaft was distinctly unhappy. I was thinking we anchor lines to, I looked around the smooth walls, floor, and ceiling of the tunnel. There were no pins, rings, or anything else to tie a line to. This could be a problem. Is this where your plan becomes more of a concept, sir? She cocked her head with a bemused smile. Working on it, Adams. Skippy, if I set you down on the floor here, can you make yourself really heavy so we can tie a line around you? Good idea, Joe. Except the answer is no, I do not currently have that capability, darn it. You better put your thinking cap on. Unslinging her rifle, she flicked the safety off. While you're thinking, I'll knock a hole in this wall. Unless you have a better idea. I did not. Skippy did not have an idea, but he did have an objection. Sergeant, remember when I advised Major Smythe against shooting at maintenance pods? The same advice applies to shooting explosive-tipped rounds at the tunnels. Oh, crap. I pulled him off my belt and held him up to glare at his beer can. You sure have a lot to say about things we can't do. Got any helpful ideas? Nope. I'm not a monkey, Joe. Helpful ideas are your job. I suggest you think fast. Him telling me that was super helpful. Not. All right, I told myself, back to basics. Specifically basic training. When faced with an obstacle or challenge, first consider what resources or assets are available to you. What did we have with us? Plenty of nanofiber cable thinner than monofilament fishing line, but capable of holding tons of weight. Winches attached to our belts, and nothing to anchor a line to. Or maybe we did. Skippy, that fancy glue we have for fixing leaks in suits and stuff like that, how strong is it? It's not glue, you ignorant cretin, he sighed. It's a paste, packed with nanoscale, blah blah blah, nerdy geek talk. If we used a big glob of that paste gook on the tunnel floor, could that hold a line? Glob? Joe, that paste gook, as you so... He huffed disgustedly. I can't even describe your astonishing failure to understand. He sputtered to a stop. The nanomachines in that adhesive are so far beyond human technology or even comprehension. Hey, beer can, Adams interjected. Yes or no? Yes, Skippy snapped irritably. You monkeys, shut up. Adams wasn't taking any crap right then. The next words out of your mouth better be instructions on how to use that adhesive, or I'm dropping you into that flooded shaft. As you said, Skippy, we didn't find a conduit, so you're pretty much useless to us. Instructions. Okay. I had never heard Skippy sounding chastised before. He made a sound like nervously clearing his throat. Here's what you do. We dropped into the flooded shaft together side by side, letting the winches on our belts lower us steadily, but not too quickly, so our armored suits could adjust to the increasing water pressure. With Skippy providing guidance, we descended until he estimated we were at the level of the spherical chamber. Then we began scanning for concealed entrances to the chamber. Adams, I switched my visor view to infrared and used a gloved fingertip to feel along the slimy wall in the murky water. What we're looking for could be very subtle, if the Elders sealed up the access and filled it with concrete or whatever this shaft liner is made of. Understood, sir, she replied from about a dozen meters below my feet. But it could also look like this giant circular door right in front of my face. You found it already? I activated my winch to let out more line and descended to her level. Sure enough, there was a big, obvious door with a big hinge on the right side, but no other visible mechanism. Sergeant, you are truly amazing. Skippy, any idea how to open this thing? There is no lock mechanism I can interface with, Skippy reported. You will have to cut the hinge off. Adams had a small plasma torch with her, so she began the slow process of cutting through the hinge from the bottom. She was concentrating, and I had nothing to do, so I stupidly wanted to fill the awkward silence. Seeing how the plasma was making slow progress against the tough material of the hinge, I estimated we were going to be there 10 or more minutes, and I couldn't stand simply hanging on a line while Adams worked. It occurred to me this was the first extended time we had been alone. Truly alone. During the mission to reactivate maser projectors on Paradise, we had been hidden in the jungle living in a stealth dropship. But other people had been in the jungle with us, and we were busy pretty much the whole time. In the shaft under Gingerbread, no one could hear us talk, except Skippy. "Adams," I said as nonchalantly as I could muster right then. "We never talked about what happened to you in that Kristang jail on Paradise." The little guy in the back of my brain, who was way smarter than me, tried to stop the words coming out of my mouth, but I ignored my subconscious until it was too late. When I first met Adams, she had been naked in a jail cell, and from the scars on her back I could tell the lizards had done awful things to her. She had never said anything about her experience there, and I had never asked. Psychologists on Earth declared Adams and Desai fit for duty, despite my reservations, and I had accepted them as official members of the Merry Band of Pirates. "Really, sir?" Her focus did not waver. She watched the plasma cutter intently. "You want to talk about that now?" "Sorry," I replied, stricken. "I'm bad at small talk, I guess." "I suck at small talk, too. The Marine Corps didn't consider chit-chat to be a core skill." "Sorry," I repeated. I wasn't looking for lurid details of... How the hell was I getting out of this conversation? Of what the lizards did. That's none of my business. I wanted to... How did you find the strength to keep going? "Discipline, sir." "And hate." That time she did glance away from the torch for a split second. "Hate? Hate is a powerful motivator. That I did learn in basic. What happened to me in that jail, to all the women who didn't make it out of there, made me hate the lizards more than you can imagine, sir. After KovaaK, when we got that little civil war going, Skippy told me he estimated 50,000 lizards dead already before the Dutchman jumped away. He asked if that number bothered me, and I told him 50,000 dead lizards is a good start. On KovaaK, I had seen Kristang civilians for the first time, and I knew Adams would not rejoice at civilian deaths, no matter what happened to her in that jail. But I did share her sentiment. On Earth, the Kristang had not hesitated to cause civilian deaths. They had deliberately targeted civilians from orbit, resulting in mass casualties. Sergeant, there's a couple billion humans on Earth who feel the same way, and they don't know the lizards like we do. "I won't tell you what happened in that jail," Adams said without looking at me. "I only told the Marine Corps psychologist because I was ordered to, and because I knew if I didn't tell them everything, I wouldn't be cleared to come back out here. I won't tell you, because I don't want to remember it, and I don't want you having that image in your mind whenever you look at me. Don't say you won't, because you will." She emphasized that last with a glance into my visor. "I'm a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I don't want anyone's pity or understanding, which is almost worse. Adams, I will tell you what happened to me when there was a knock on my jail cell door and you opened it. I thought I had been abandoned by humanity. My species, UNEF, my country, the Marine Corps. I thought they had all abandoned me to rot and be killed in that jail." "Nobody came to visit you?" "No, sir." That surprised me and dismayed me. Chang told me he had visits from Chinese Army and UNEF officials. Just before the Ruha hit the jail complex, I had a visit from a Marine Corps major, whose name I could not remember at the moment. He got killed in the hallway.
Okay.
Maybe he was on his way to see you next. Maybe. She did not sound convinced. "Is he where you got that uniform?" "Yes." "I was alone. I didn't know what happened when the Ruha hit the complex from orbit. There was a knock, the door opened, and I saw your goofy face. Then you ran off to get clothes for me, like I cared about that." "You were naked," I said lamely. "So?" "So you're... a woman. And?" As I did not have an intelligent answer, I gave her the truth. "It matters. When you opened that door, I told myself that I had not been abandoned. Somebody had gotten out of a cell, and instead of running off like you should have..." Another glance at me. you took the time and the risk to rescue me. Right there, that restored my faith in humanity. We may be ignorant. As far as the beer can is concerned, we may be dumb as a paramecium. We fight each other, we kill each other over politics and religion. We do horrible things to each other. Maybe every species is like that. But as long as there is one human out there who remembers what loyalty means, I've got faith in us monkeys. You not only saved my life, you restored my hope. So the next time I take a risk to save your neck, she turned the plasma torch off to look straight at me. Don't argue. I heard that loud and clear, Gunnery Sergeant. I'm a staff sergeant, sir. She looked startled, which did not happen to Margaret Adams. You're a gunnery sergeant now. Consider it a field promotion. Hell knows you've earned it, and we've been away from Earth long enough. Even if you'd stayed on Paradise, you would have enough time in grade by now. Thank you, sir. She turned her attention back to the hinge and activated the torch again. I took that to mean she didn't know what else to say. Hell, you know this outfit. I forced a laugh. They'll promote anybody. I heard that, she replied. But I could hear the mirth in her voice. When she had cut 3/4 of the way through the hinge, I had a bad thought. Skippy, when that hinge is cut through, what happens next? I've been thinking about that, Joe. The hinge is on the outside, so the door is designed to swing outward. The water pressure down here is keeping the door closed even without the hinge. That makes sense. Okay, so how do we get it open? The door was thick and massive. No way could even our powered suits pull it away from its frame. Now here is where I recommend explosives. I like that idea. Adams agreed. Gunny, I used her new rank. Setting off explosives in the water will crush us. Just then I had another bad thought. Hey, Skippy.
Sure.
What happens to us when it does open? A massive surge of water will blow through the gap, carrying you with it and crushing you. Duh. That is not optimal, Adams observed needlessly. Relax, monkeys. The beer can has a plan. That is a good plan, Skippy. I often praise as we hung suspended halfway out of the water near where the shaft met the horizontal tunnel. Of course it is a good plan, Joe. It is my plan, the beer can said smugly. Yeah, except, what do we do if those explosives don't get that door open? Then we'll have to go back down there to plant more charges, and if the door cuts loose while we're working on it... Adios, muchacho? Skippy finished my thought.
I feel like I'm confused.
Chill, Colonel, Adams ordered. When it comes to things that go boom, I know what I'm doing. Fire in the hole, she shouted as she eye-clicked to set off the charges. There was a bark of muffled thunder, then bubbles erupted around us. Then the water level began to drop. Here we go, I announced, as I let out line to descend as the water level fell.
What?
The tunnel floor trembled under Smythe's boots. If he hadn't felt the tremor through the soles of his feet, the alert flashing in his visor would have notified him. What is that? Captain Giroux, standing to Smythe's left and retreating slowly as the tunnel-filling bot haltingly advanced, checked his own sensor data.
No.
Tremor. I hope it is not caused by a bot even larger than this one. The elder bot had been inexorably moving down the tunnel toward them, its limbs grinding and screeching. With its bulk almost completely filling the tunnel, there was no way to get around it, unless they used explosives. Smythe and Giroux had hurriedly developed a plan for the team to retreat into the chamber below. If the bot kept moving onto the walkway bridge, the team could use anchored lines under the bridge to get past and behind the bot and sprint up the spiral tunnel. If the bot halted at the entrance to the chamber, then the pirates would need to take measures Skippy had warned them against, such as disabling the bot with rifle rounds and blowing it apart with explosives. If that tremor was caused by a bot, we are in... Major Smythe! A call came from a hull chick on the scout team, far behind Smythe. Although their first trip down the spherical chamber at the end of the spiral tunnel had not revealed any side tunnels, Smythe had sent people ahead to see if any other way out could be found. We've got flooding. There's water pouring in down... The voice cut off. then returned. "Sir, we're underwater down here," said the voice under strain. In the background, Smythe could hear the sound of the ranger's helmet being bumped and scraped against the tunnel wall, or ceiling.
He went to cook, but then it was
"The water is coming in fast, sir. It will be reaching you soon." Brilliant. Smythe slung his rifle and secured it so it wouldn't be swept away by the powerful force of onrushing water. What a cock-up. What bloody else can go wrong today? Adams and I found the hole where the door had been, mostly by feel. The already murky water was so churned up by the air bubbles that visibility was barely farther than my outstretched hand. After crawling through the newly created hole into the spherical chamber, I tried contacting Smythe's team. No reply. "Adams, you got anything?" "Nothing, sir. We need to contact them. I don't think they would have come deeper into a flooded tunnel. They would have gone up, if they could." "Don't worry, Adams, I have an idea. This idea isn't even mine." "What is that, sir?" Captain Giroux tapped the side of his helmet. "Can you repeat that last? I'm picking up intermittent interference on my comm gear." Smythe paused, listening to Giroux's transmission. It was breaking up, and the interference was not entirely random. He held up a finger for silence, then smiled. "What does this mean?" Giroux asked when he saw Smythe's grin. "It means our colonel read the after-action report from my trip through the sewers on KovaaK. He read the report, he paid attention, and he learned the same lesson I did. He also took the time to refresh an archaic skill. That is Morse code, Giroux." "Ah," Giroux smiled, understanding. "Captain, when I signed on with the merry band of pirates, I thought our colonel was an affable, woolly-headed average soldier who got lucky. I have come to realize we are very, very fortunate to have Bishop as our commanding officer." "Agreed. You are sending a reply? My own Morse skills, I am sad to say, have lapsed. Replying now. This is interesting. He and Sergeant Adams are below us in that large chamber. Didn't you order Adams to get the colonel and skip it to safety? Fortunately for us, our Marine Corps Staff Sergeant is better at demonstrating judgment and personal initiative than she is at blindly following orders. I have the full message now. We are to swim down to the chamber. Apparently, Bishop has found a way out of what I remember as a dead end. I will be interested to hear where he got all this water." "Swim toward the chamber?" Giroux mused. "That is good, as that bot up ahead—" He pointed to the hulking form still visible through the murky water and the enhanced vision provided by his visor. "Will not allow us to go anywhere else." With a rear guard of 2 people maintaining visual contact with the still lurching, slowly advancing bot, Smythe's team swam downward at a moderate pace. There was no need for frantic speed, and Smythe wished to avoid accidents. When he came around a section of the dizzying spiral tunnel, the speakers in his helmet crackled, and he could hear Bishop's voice through the distortion. "It is good to hear you, Colonel," Smythe said calmly, concealing his great relief. "I couldn't leave Poole behind," Bishop explained. "She's supposed to be my babysitter." "We are supposed to keep you safe, sir," Smythe protested. "Hell, Major, I won't tell anyone if you don't." "I am telling everybody," Skippy announced gleefully. "Surviving an idiotic stunt like this deserves to be commemorated big time. Although, we haven't actually survived it. Yet."
Oh my god.
Skippy continued to be skeptical as we ascended the vertical shaft. Then Smythe insisted Adams and I be the first 2 people to winch our way up to the tunnel. Surprisingly, the water level in the shaft was only a couple meters lower than it had been before we blew the access door. That made me wonder where all the water came from. With us back on the dry floor of the tunnel, we were able to belay 2 extra lines, and as more people climbed out of the shaft, we had more people anchoring lines. Sooner than I expected, the whole team was out of the water, and we began advancing double time up the tunnel. "Any bots up ahead of us, Skippy?" I asked fearfully. That trick of using the vertical shafts was not likely to work a second time. "How should I know, Joe?" he grumbled. "I think we should be okay. We are so far from where the damage occurred, the maintenance bots up at these levels won't have any reason to see us as a threat or even a nuisance. I hope.
I can
See, this is why I insisted that stupid trigger-happy monkeys don't go shooting things. Right, Sergeant Adams? Speaking of shooting things, she retorted with a twinkle in her eye and a wink toward me. I took that as a good sign that our painfully awkward conversation in the flooded access shaft was forgotten, or should be. Skippy was skeptical, even when he saw the bright daylight of the tunnel's entrance, and the team came out into bright sunshine. The surface team, while supremely anxious after the bots had shut down our comm relays, had followed my standing orders, maintained discipline, and not entered the tunnels to search for us. Although Lieutenant Williams of the SEALs team later admitted he had been within about 3 minutes of telling himself to screw the orders and bring his people down into the tunnels. Skippy was skeptical even when we boarded the dropships and dusted off hot, punching the throttles and flying supersonic right on the deck until we were 100 kilometers from the tunnel entrance. Okay, Joe. I think we're safe now. If not, then we're not safe anywhere on Gingerbread, so we are safe enough for now. You think those bots may follow us all the way to base camp? That was alarming. No, my concern is the bots in those tunnels may have communicated with other bots across the planet and instructed them that we are a menace. Unlikely, but there is some risk, so I mentioned it. Got it. Crap, that will make it difficult for us to look for conduits in other tunnels. That will not be a problem, Joe. Why? After we nearly got trapped underground, you thought of a better way to get a conduit? If there had been an easier, less risky way to retrieve a conduit from deep beneath the surface, I was going to be pissed at him for sending us down in that tunnel. No, Joe. What I meant was it's over. I do not know of any other potential locations to find a conduit on this planet. I am now convinced the Elders cleaned out everything useful when they left. We will not find a conduit down here, and I don't want any silly monkeys risking their lives in a futile effort to help me. The long flight back was glum. News had gotten around that Skippy was giving up on finding a conduit, and he suggested we do the same. Adams came over to sit near me. Gunny, I addressed her with a forced smile. None of us felt much like smiling at the prospect of being trapped on Gingerbread forever. I wish you'd can that Gunny shit, sir. Sergeant? She sighed and rubbed her aching right shoulder. If I get promoted to gunnery sergeant, I have to decide whether to go for the master sergeant or first sergeant for my E8 step. Right now, I don't want to think about any of that. No, Colonel.
What?
She held up a hand. I appreciate the gesture, but a promotion out here doesn't mean anything. It means you're accruing pay as an E7 instead of E6. It sounded lame even to me.
Also, does this thing...
You can loan me the difference.
Does this put the
She
marker
sat
here?
back in the
Can you
seat.
do that over top of me? Does that...
You are refusing the promotion?
No, it doesn't do anything.
Rank is an advantage. Never
No,
give up
it's
an
not, but
advantage
it
in a
doesn't do
combat
anything,
situation. Yeah, somebody told me that once, or
Someone told me
more
it,
than
like, the
once.
mark, but I don't think it
Except,
does.
remember,
I don't remember.
I sat back in my seat more weary in my soul than I had been
It
since...
doesn't work.
Since when? Since I was in a Kristang jail on Paradise waiting to be executed for the crime of holding on to my humanity. This is not a combat situation, Gunny. We're going to be farmers here now, and we're never going home. Really? Then why are you doing that twitching thing with your fingers? The thing you do when you're working on a plan. I do that? I said, forcing my fingers to be still. You do. You also talk to yourself. Your lips move without any sound.
Okay,
Crap,
you-
I'm that obvious? Not to you, you're not. She laughed softly. It was good to see her happy. It made me feel good. What's this plan you're working on?
E,
Right now?
blow up E.
I leaned closer to whisper in her ear. It didn't even make me uncomfortable to be that close to her, which surprised me.
Sooner.
Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. We had been through a whole lot together. I need to sell Count Chocula on an idea. He's not going to like it, is he? No, he'll love it. It means he gets rid of me for a while.
Yes.
Chapter 22. Before approaching Chotec to sell my next idea, I wanted to make damn sure we didn't have a better option. That Skippy didn't think we had any options at all. So that's it then? We give up? I asked him after we got back to base camp. Skippy sighed, or did a good imitation of a sigh since beer cans do not have lungs.
Yeah, I do
Giving up
extra
sounds
damage,
like
right?
I'm a quitter. Could we instead say that I am making a rational assessment of the situation? Call it whatever you like, you are still telling me to stop looking for a conduit.
No.
I'm telling
Is it
you,
the same as an
it is a
auto
waste of
attack?
time to search for a conduit on
Okay.
this planet, Joe.
Sorry, I don't know what
Clearly
Voltaic
the
is,
Elders
but, like,
dismantled,
not really
took away, or destroyed almost every
I'm very
useful piece of
confused.
technology before they departed. We are not going to find a conduit here. You don't know that. Joe, please, let's cut the crap, and you stop trying to give me a pep talk, okay? You suck at it. No, I do not know for absolute certainty that there is not a functional conduit somewhere on Gingerbread. I do know with like 99.999% accuracy that there is unlikely to be a functional conduit on this planet. The only way we could find one is if the godlike beings we call the Elders forgot about one and left it behind. Realistically, I do not see that happening.
Damage, thank you.
Fine. No way was I going to argue statistics with him. I could barely pronounce the word. What do you suggest we do? Sit around watching potatoes grow until you die? No. I suggest you do something at least potentially useful, like determining where to build a permanent settlement and get started on it. That is still given up, Skippy. Anything we do to prepare for staying here long term is given up. I want to get off this planet, out of this star system, and go find a conduit for you someplace else. I held up a finger to shush him, and to my surprise, it worked. Look, it may be a silly waste of time, but I need to feel like I am doing something useful. The Dutchman survived passing close to the star, so we will have a sort of ship up there. I want to see if we can find enough parts in the space junkyard up there to patch together a starship. If we have transport out of here, we still have a shred of hope. Count Chocula is going to tell you that it's a waste of time and resources, and for once I agree with him. The Dutchman did survive, but that strain on the lifeboat's reactor has meant I had to almost shut it down. There is very little power aboard what used to be our ship.
Earlier, though.
Will you help? All we need is one dropship and a couple pilots. Any of our pilots would jump at the chance to get off this rock while we still can.
Right away?
This may be their last chance. My willingness to go isn't your only problem. If you are going to inspect the junkyard up there, you need to take a condor and a full load of fuel, including supplemental tanks. With all the low-level flying we've done for surveys down here, we don't have the fuel to spare. I thought about that. When we were in those tunnels, you said the geothermal power systems are still active? Some of them, why? Because if we have a power source, we can synthesize fuel, right? Hell, with enough power, we can make fuel out of air. Technically, you are correct. And we did bring a synthesizer apparatus with us. 2 of them, actually. Okay. If you are determined to do this, I'll help however I can. Joe, you know when Chotek hears your plan to use geothermal power to run synthesizers, he will want those units producing something more practical than dropship fuel. Why? I winked. Like you said, we need to find a place for a permanent settlement on this planet, and then we need to move people and all our gear there. We also need to fly recon patrols to make sure no nasties like Theranin are sneaking up on us. That means a lot of flying time, and that takes a lot of fuel. They won't miss 1 tank full. It will take considerably more than 1 tank full to get off this planet and fly somewhere useful, Joe. Your biggest obstacle is not obtaining fuel. It will be getting Chotek to approve a plan he is certain to view as a waste of resources. Chotek will not be a problem, Skippy. I'll tell him we will be looking for usable technology up there in the junkyard, even if we can't rebuild the Dutchman. Besides,
Yeah.
you're forgetting my greatest asset.
I'm trying to figure
What's
out,
that?
like, timing-wise, like, from when I
Chotek would
click
love for me to be
TV,
away
how
from
long
this
it takes
planet
to
for a
log
couple
back
months while he
to
builds his little kingdom down here.
go.
I was right. After a moderate amount of arguing that seemed like he was merely going through the motions, my boss granted permission for me to leave the planet, and he didn't even ask how long I would be gone.
Yeah, thanks.
What he cared about was that we would have a steady supply of fuel for dropships, and once we had hooked up a synthesizer to a geothermal power source and demonstrated making quality fuel, he lost interest in what I was doing. 3 weeks later, with tanks so full the Condor groaned from the effort of taking off, we left Gingerbread behind. Another Condor topped off our fuel in high orbit, and then we were gone, beyond the stealth field. To maintain communications with the surface, we deployed satellites and high-altitude balloons to relay signals. Bandwidth would be skimpy, so we could only get simple text messages through, and that was fine with both me and Hans Chotek. I was free. Free is a relative term. I was stuck aboard a Theranan dropship with 5 other people, holds jammed with fuel and supplies, and we still had no way to get away from the star system. Skippy's battle with the worm was still counting down to 0 hour, and searching an ancient junkyard full of broken alien ships may be a tremendous waste of time. What I cared about was that it felt like I was doing something useful, or something that might be useful, despite the odds against it. Desai, Reed, and the 3 other pilots mostly cared they had one last opportunity to fly a spacecraft before we all became subsistence farmers like the humans on Paradise. So, our Condor had plenty of fuel, bland but sufficient food, and 1 shiny beer can. I was hoping this would be the most epic road trip ever. This sucks, I mumbled less than a month later. I warned you, don't remind me, Skippy. I snapped back at Skippy. Hey, I wasn't the one who thought coming out here would be a super fun family adventure. You're like the dad who gets the family in the car, drives 6 hours to the Museum of Dusty Relics, and is surprised everyone didn't enjoy the trip. I said, don't remind me. Someone has to. Crap. I was hanging in space, tethered to the Condor, just returned from yet another fruitless trip to inspect alien junk. This time, it was part of a Theranan ship that Skippy estimated was 20,000 years old. From the spinning hulk that massed over 8,000 tons, we were able to recover 3 jump coils. 3. Skippy didn't even know if those 3 were usable. All we could see was those 3 were the only ones with microfractures in their matrices. 3 measly coils were not going to get the Flying Dutchman anywhere. We also found a surprising amount of fuel in the Hulk's tanks, although the reactors had sheared away, so there was no place to use the fuel. And we recovered part of a jump drive controller. Skippy didn't know if he could use it, but it wasn't large or heavy, so we took it with us anyway. The fuel we found in the tanks wasn't compatible with the Condor's engines, damn it. If we found or could build a reactor, we could always come back for the fuel. That Hulk wasn't going anywhere. Thus far, our epic journey to the stars was, as Hans Chotek predicted, an epic waste of time. After the first couple days, my boss only bothered to contact me once a week, and that was in response to the rather thin progress reports I had sent. The people on Gingerbread had made actual progress. They had located a site to build a settlement, and were already transferring people and supplies there. The site sounded nice. It was next to a river, and just upstream from a large lake. Winters there were mild, and perhaps the best feature of that site was another geothermal power source was there. One of the synthesizers was being relocated and should be producing dropship fuel soon. Major Sims had a team clearing land and planting test crops. I could not picture the Spec Ops teams settling down to live like Little House on the Prairie, but I certainly could not criticize them. They were dealing with reality as best they could, while I was only delaying the inevitable by flying around looking at ancient space junk. We had plenty of fuel, we had plenty of food, we had plenty of floating scrap to investigate in the orbital junkyard. What the 6 of us were running out of was patience and enthusiasm. Right from the beginning, our flight was a desperation move, a Hail Mary. I'd pushed to explore the junkyard in part because we just might find something useful out there. But I knew the reality was my main motivation in flying off-world was to delay facing the fact that Skippy was going to die soon, and the merry band of pirates would be trapped on Gingerbread. Probably forever. I justified my refusal to accept reality because reality totally sucked. So it's reality's fault. Desai, I'm coming in, I announced after indulging myself for a long minute of staring at the stars. Let's wrap this up. There's nothing useful here we don't already have aboard. Yes, Colonel, she replied from the cockpit. Desai had been the first pilot to volunteer for our useless goose chase, and of course I approved her coming with me. If this were the last time we ever flew, I wanted her with me. Set course for the next target? Sure, I responded without enthusiasm. Then, remembering that I had to set the tone for all 6 of us, I added, I promise, no negative thoughts this time. The next target is going to be a jackpot of gear we can use to fix up the old Dutchman, guaranteed. Yes, sir, she said with a chuckle that sounded forced. It's only a 4-day trip from here. We'll know if you're right soon enough. Joe, we got a problem. Skippy's voice broke me out of a daydream, and I scrambled to pull myself back to the present. There was no problem with our Condor. I knew that because the display in front of me was not showing any alerts, and the pilots up in the cockpit would have notified me. That left some very bad possibilities, like Skippy losing control of the Guardians and then tearing our dropship apart, or the worm attacking Skippy again. What is it? In the passenger compartment, I had been loosely strapped into a seat, standard procedure while the Condor was coasting toward our next target. Desai had fired the engines for about half an hour and then cut thrust. We wouldn't use the main jets again until we needed to decelerate to match course and speed with the pile of spinning ancient junk that was our next target to explore. Until then, the 6 of us floated around in zero gravity and exercised awkwardly to prevent our muscles from wasting away. Sorry to startle you, there is no immediate danger, he assured me. The orbits of the planets in this system are not natural. Not possible. There's an entire planet missing. Hearing that gave me a chill. Oh, crap. Is this like Newark, where Newark got pushed out of its original orbit, that disrupted the orbits of the other planets, and the innermost planet fell into the star? No. Well, yes, there was an inner planet here, one that originally wasn't there at all. I speculate that... Hold on. Go back a minute. What do you mean the inner planet wasn't originally there? Skippy sighed. Now I have to explain orbital mechanics to you. His voice was incredulous. Can I hit the highlights and skip the math? Probably a good idea, I admitted. Okay, here goes nothing. Joe, running the math backwards shows me the Roach Motel used to have a Saturn-sized gas giant planet orbiting close to the star. Close like the star's gravity well was siphoning off the planet's atmosphere. I thought gas giant planets didn't form so close to a star. Very good, Joey. Get yourself a juice box. Gas giants normally do not form so close to a star, and this planet didn't form there. This planet originally orbited far from the star, out deep in the Oort cloud. The Elders must have towed it near the star. Towed? Holy shit. They could... Of course they could do that. Wow, moving a big planet like that through the system must have caused havoc with the other planets. It would have required the Elders to stabilize the other planets during and after the transition. Most likely, the Elders jumped the planet through a temporary wormhole to avoid it passing through the orbits of other planets. I simply shook my head. The works of the Elders blew my mind. They jumped a planet through a wormhole. Skippy once told me they had jumped a supergiant blue-white star through a wormhole, jumped it outside the galaxy. Beings like that, I could not comprehend. No wonder Skippy was so awesome. He had been built by beings to whom awesomeness was commonplace. Let's skip the part where I ask you how the hell anyone can jump a planet through a wormhole and get to my next question. Why? Why would they want to reposition a planet close to a star? A gas giant planet, Joe. That's the key. I am speculating, but my guess is the Elders used the planet to slowly replenish the star's hydrogen. Pushing the planet into the star would have been too disruptive, so they placed the planet where its atmosphere would be gradually siphoned off. That technique can stretch out the life of a star's main phase. If the Elders were tapping the star for power, as I suspect they were and still are, they are shortening the star's useful life. The further back I run the math, the more fuzzy it is. But I think the Elders used at least 2 gas giant planets to replenish the star over the eons. Wow. Wow. So when you said a planet is missing, you meant that over time, the star sucked up the entire gas giant planet? No. Damn, talking with you is frustrating. You ask too many questions. What I meant is that innermost gas giant planet fell into the star much earlier than it was supposed to. Gas giants have rocky cores. When all the gas had been siphoned off, the Elders likely planned to crash the useless core remnant into the star. What I think happened is the gas giant fell into the star while it was still a giant. The Elders pushed it into the star the same way someone pushed Newark out past its original orbit? No. Joe, technically there are 3 planets missing from this star system. Crap, Skippy. Crap indeed, Joe. There's the gas giant that fell into the star, plus a Neptune-sized planet that got ejected from the system. Technically, that planet is still orbiting the star, but it is so far away it takes 8,000 years for a single orbit. Because the math tells me roughly where that outer planet must be, I found it using the Dutchman's sensors. It's faint, but it's there. That's two. What about the third planet? That is what puzzles me, Joe. The third planet that is missing originally orbited just beyond where Gingerbread is, kind of like how Mars orbits beyond Earth. The missing planet was more massive than Mars. The math tells me it had about the mass of Venus. Okay, and? Where did it go? It didn't go anywhere, Joe. It just simply went poof and disappeared. It's missing? Was its picture on a milk carton or something? What? Forget I said that. How is it possible for a whole planet to go missing? It's not. Not even for the Elders. I thought possibly they jumped it somewhere, but doing that leaves a distinctive vibration pattern inside the star that would be detectable even after all this time. There is no such vibration. I scratched my head. This is all great info, and it's a mystery to puzzle through another time, right? It's not actionable? Actionable? You need to stop picking up buzzwords from PowerPoint slides. It is actionable, Joe, because I want us to fly over to where this planet should be so I can determine it better with this ship's crappy instruments. Whoo boy, that's gonna be a tough sell to KovaaK. How about we check out our next target and think about flying over to this phantom planet later? Deal. If the phantom planet exists, it will take us a month to get there anyway. Plenty of derelict ships in the junkyard between here and there. Hey! He exclaimed with delight.
Oh my god.
You don't even need to tell KovaaK at all. There are 2 large derelicts in the general area where I expect the phantom planet to be if it exists. Those derelicts are close enough for me to scan the area and determine whether we should go in for a closer look. A closer look? At a planet that you think might not exist? Well, it just sounds stupid when you say it like that, Joe. Major Smythe. Captain Giroux approached the Spec Ops team leader as the SAS man came out of a dreary meeting with KovaaK and Sims, reviewing details of the site KovaaK had selected for a permanent human settlement on Gingerbread.
I take back that I said he deserved that. I didn't
We have a
think he died
decision?
from falling in a manhole.
Smythe nodded. Yes, KovaaK has selected a site. It's good enough, I suppose. Major Sims agrees the area is suitable for agriculture. He is serious about expending effort to build permanent structures while Skippy is still with us. Captain, our civilian leader is planning a golf course, Smythe noted with a raised eyebrow. Golf? Giroux thought for a moment the remark had been missed in translation, then thought Smythe had been joking. The expression on Smythe's face made it clear his statement had not been a joke. Giroux lowered his voice. It is one thing to scout for a site, but it seems premature to dedicate our air power to transportation of supplies to build a settlement, while Colonel Bishop is still working to get us away from the star system. I agree, Captain. Orders are orders. I intend to confirm my instructions with Colonel Bishop. KovaaK does not intend to begin a serious effort to move base camp for another month. He looked up at the trees, which still had healthy green leaves. The climate model created by Skippy predicted nights at base camp would begin becoming cool in another 6 weeks, with winter approaching in 4 months. It was Smythe's turn to lower his voice.
Jesus.
He glanced around to assure no one overheard the
They turn into
conversation.
balls now?
There is another matter I need to discuss with Colonel Bishop, if we truly are to be stranded on this planet. We need to do something about those Theranin. They may not be a threat to us now because we have a technological advantage, but in 10, 20, 50 years, our dropships will cease to be flight-worthy, and even for ground combat we have a limited supply of ammunition. I do not want our future generations to face the Theranin with our side armed only with bows and arrows. Giroux nodded in grim agreement. We must hit them while we still have air power. You think Bishop will agree? I won't ask him while he still hopes to fix Skippy's problem. But our commanding officer is a common-sense soldier, Smythe concluded. He will understand what we have to do. I just finished a 4-hour shift as co-pilot of our Condor when Skippy made a strange, strangled sort of beeping sound, then went silent. Skippy, what was that? He had been quiet for several hours. I thought he was being nice and let me concentrate on flying, although our dropship was currently coasting toward a cluster of parts from a derelict Theranin ship, so there was absolutely nothing for pilot or co-pilot to do.
Hey, he's black again.
Major Desai had spent most of our 4 hours together putting me through simulations to improve my skills for flying the Condor. All I was trusted to do so far was routine maneuvers in space. Any tricky flying or flying in an atmosphere would have to wait for me to gain more experience. Skippy? He didn't respond at all. In a panic, I launched myself through the door into the main cabin where his beer can was strapped into a seat. No sooner had I reached the chair and reached out to shake him when he finally spoke, and his avatar shimmered to life above the headrest of the seat. Hi, Joe. I thought you were flying. Skippy's voice sounded mildly disoriented. Whew, I had a little shock for a moment. Skippy. I waggled a finger at his avatar. If this is because I washed my own laundry this morning, that is not funny. Nope. Although that was a shock. Also, you did it wrong. What is the problem then? Joe, we're in potential danger. Wow. I clapped my hands. That's great news, Skippy, thank you. Huh? Hey, usually the merry band of pirates are in actual, no-kidding, oh-my-God, pee-in-my-pants danger. To only be in potential danger is a huge improvement. Oh, that is a good point. We've already got these Guardians swarming around us, a ship broken in pieces, your firewall is losing power, and we haven't been able to find the conduit thingy to fix you. What is the problem now? I don't want to alarm you, but you're gonna do it anyway. Right. Those other problems you mentioned. This new danger is kind of an order of magnitude worse. Like infinitely worse. What the hell is it, Skippy? There's a sentinel here? Oh, shit. A freaking sentinel?
Oh my God.
Like a giant, unstoppable elder killing machine that can stop the Rindaloo like bugs. That was a good one, because the Rindaloo are sort of spiders, like bugs. Oh, yeah, that was freaking hilarious, Skippy. Really, I would have been surprised if there wasn't a sentinel or two around here somewhere. Why the hell didn't you mention that before? I demanded. Would you have brought the ship to the Roach Motel if you knew there were sentinels here? Hell no. Crap, did I just answer my own question? You think? Joey, if I told you this system likely contained sentinels, you would have gone all, ooh, too dangerous on me. His avatar waggled its fingers in the air as if frightened. And we wouldn't have come here. Yeah, and then we would have a ship in one piece. Plus, we've accomplished so much since we got here. Like, nothing. Yet. We haven't accomplished anything yet, Joe. Have faith. Have faith. So says the beer can who failed to tell me about the unstoppable killing machine and brought us to this dead-end star system. Joe, in my defense, there are sentinels scattered across the galaxy. Normally, they are dormant, and they are actually in another phase of space-time. As far as I know, the last time any of them were active was when the Maxolks used Elder devices to attack the Rindaloo. That woke up the Sentinels, and after they stomped the Maxolks and Rindaloo back to the Stone Age, they went dormant again. And we woke up this one? No, in fact, that is what shocked me. Joe, this Sentinel is not dormant, it's dead. I think it's been dead a long time. All I found was a broken piece of it. Dead. How could that happen? Hence the source of my shock.
What if he goes into a different body?
What in this universe could kill a sentinel? His avatar shuddered. This scares the shit out of me, Joe. It scares me too, Skippy. What do you mean by dead? It is not generating or using any power. It is tumbling out of control. I pinged it, and it did not respond. You pinged it? Yes. Duh. How else was I supposed to? You found a giant, super-powerful killing machine that is guarding an Elder star system we are ransacking, and your best idea was to say, hey, how you doing? Oh. Sorry. In retrospect, that may not have been my best idea ever. Anywho, no harm, no foul, right? No harm so far, you little shithead. You said there could be more than one sentinel here. What if your ping woke up another one? I said I was sorry, Joe. Geez Louise, let it go, will you? I just glared at him in disbelief. Skippy, are you experiencing another cognitive deficit or whatever you call it when you act like you're drunk? No? Why? No reason. Other than you just doing the single dumbest thing you've ever done. Oh. He laughed nervously. That was the single dumbest thing you know of, Joe. Truthfully, pinging a sentinel isn't even in my top 10. Damn, I have done some really stupid shit I haven't told you about, and... Maybe I shouldn't have said that. You think?
I'd say no.
Okay, so where is this sentinel? We'll back away from it real easy and... What? Back away from it? His avatar folded its arms across its chest. No, dum-dum, we need to rendezvous with it. I stared at the avatar for a long second, then shook my head incredulously. Excuse me? Pinging the damn thing wasn't good enough, now we need to go knock on the front door? No one's home, Joe, trust me. Trust you. Right after telling me you've done some stupid shit I don't even know about? Your meat sack memory is terribly inefficient. I should be able to erase your memory of what I said just then, but no. You freaking monkeys remember all the wrong stuff. Yes, Joe. We need to fly over to this sentinel and check it out. Because... whatever you say next, it better be good, Skippy, like epically good. It is, Joe. It is almost certain we can find a conduit inside that sentinel. Oh, crap. That actually was a good reason for us to go poking our noses in places our noses did not belong. Almost certain? Like, I would give 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds that we will find a conduit there. Using conduit capability to manipulate local space-time is how sentinels function. That capability is how they reside in and draw power from higher dimensions. It is how they can disrupt stars and tear starships apart. Guardians use a similar technology, although on a much lower scale, and conduits are not native to Guardians. They just temporarily use conduits located outside this space-time. Uh-huh. I was underwhelmed. Come on, Joe. This is exciting. We finally found what I need to fix myself. Maybe. We might have found a conduit we can use. We've had 2 failures with conduits we found so far. What makes you think a conduit inside a broken sentinel will still be functional? Because it will not be a conduit. Considering the size of the fragment I found, there should be hundreds of devices I can use as a conduit. We only need one. Joe, let me talk, please. His avatar held up a finger to shush me. This is our golden opportunity. I didn't mention it to you before because there is no reason to worry you about things you can't control. But over the past 48 hours, the worm has been increasingly active. To combat it, I am draining more and more power from my internal reserves. If we don't find a conduit soon, like within the next 12 days, I am likely toast. And so are you in the long run. Crap. Skippy, in the future, I do need to worry about that type of thing. Okay, tell me one thing. If you are certain a sentinel has the conduit capability you need, why didn't you contact one when we got here? Because a live sentinel would most likely stomp me flat for violating like every rule the elders have, he responded quietly, and didn't even add the usual implied duh in his tone. The only reason the sentinel I found is an opportunity rather than a danger is that it's dead as a doornail. The idea that anything in this galaxy can kill a sentinel scares the shit out of me, but this one is dead. 12 days, huh? I rubbed my chin, and Skippy's avatar took on a pitiful, helpless expression he must have learned from watching sad puppies on Instagram. How long for us to get to the Sentinel? Just over 5 days at maximum acceleration. To be precise, 121 hours, 38 minutes, and that's precise enough, thank you. Oh, hell. I felt a whopping headache coming on already. I need to get an okay from Chotec about this. Messing with the Sentinel was something our mission commander was not going to like one bit. Time for a round-trip signal to Gingerbread is... I checked the display, but Desai answered for me. 16 minutes, Colonel, she replied, and looked at me with one eyebrow raised and one finger poised over the autopilot button. I nodded as I relaxed back in my seat and engaged the safety straps for acceleration. Get us moving toward the Sentinel, Desai. We'll need all the time we can get if Chotec approves this crazy plan. Yes, sir, she acknowledged. Prepare for sustained acceleration. She turned to look me straight in the eye. What if Mr. Chotek does not approve us approaching a sentinel? Then, I took a deep breath. I will have a decision to make. 29 minutes later, we received a short message. Take no action at this time. Instructions to follow. That was Chotek's way of telling me he was thinking about it, and that I should wait for his decision. As we were already burning hard to intercept the sentinel, I interpreted take no action to mean that we should take no action to cease our acceleration. I know that was bullshit, but I was grasping at straws. Skippy, are there any potential junkyard targets along our current course? Whew. Technically no, but if we alter course within the next 48 minutes, we could reach a cluster of potentially useful junk. After that, we will be headed away from any plausible targets for our original mission. 48 minutes, I repeated thoughtfully. It will take 8 minutes for Chotek's signal to reach us out here, so he has another 40 minutes to make up his mind. In my message to him about the Sentinel, I had included the information that Skippy estimated the worm would get past his eternal defenses within 12 days. While that should have impressed on our mission commander the urgency of the situation, and that the broken Sentinel may be our last hope to fix Skippy, I don't know if Chotek would believe me. He may think I faked Skippy's 12-day deadline as a way to convince him to approve the mission to the Sentinel. My credibility with our mission leader was not the best. It was frustrating that the speed of light time lag had made it impossible to have a real conversation. We did not have to wait 48 minutes for an answer. A second message was received 7 minutes later. Chotek denied permission for us to investigate the Sentinel, and further, he ordered me to avoid coming anywhere near the dangerous Elder machine. Chotek thought the risk was too great that us poking around a Sentinel, even one supposedly dead, would trigger other Sentinels to destroy humanity's home planet. Colonel? Desai looked at me expectantly. The message had been directed to me personally, so she hadn't read it. Now what the hell was I going to do? A quick glance at the clock told me we had another 41 minutes until I would be directly violating orders. Continue on present course, I told Desai, and the tone of my voice must have alerted her to the content of Chotek's message. We have another 41 minutes before we are technically violating orders, I explained, so Desai did not have to participate in the mutiny. Yes, sir, she replied quietly, avoiding my eyes.
Oh, man, can you pass me my pillow?
She sat stiffly in her couch, with one finger tapping slowly on a blank part of the flat-screen controls, like she was working up to say something to me. Desai, I'm going to request a confirmation. I looked down at my own console and began typing, partly to avoid a discussion with her. 41 minutes. I had 41 minutes to decide whether I...
Mutant one?
No, it wasn't the mutant one, it's the other one.
Which one?
The one that's like the mutant, but not the mutant.
Like
Same
the same
color.
color?
Same color.
We're still doing KovaaK, remember? We're still doing KovaaK.
Can you make me green tea, please? Oh, jeez.
Man, those cinnamon buns are delicious.
I know. I had 2 of them.
Yeah, almost gone already. It's like 5 of them left in that tray.
They're really good.
Your parents had each like 4 and Katrina has like 7.
I had 2. Boone is dead, also.
I had 4. She's also dead because she's a big bug. Are you lying there with Mr. Fluff, Luna? What is he doing?
Mr. Fluff's praying.
How come he's such a nice rabbit and this animal's so evil?
I was a United States Army soldier or a pirate.
Oh.
If I was a pirate, then there were no rules, no restrictions on our conduct. I would be representing my... self rather than humanity, and I would be substituting my own inexperienced judgment for that of UNEF Command in the form of Hans Chotek. A mutiny would be easy to do, except for 2 things. First, Chotek had been right, and I had been wrong about us going to Paradise. On my own, I would not have taken the ship there to check on the status of humans trapped on that planet. I'd been afraid of learning humans there were in danger that we couldn't do anything about. Humans on Paradise had been in danger, but we had found a way to secure their future. Being wrong about that issue had been a humbling experience for me. Until then, I had been feeling pretty cocky about saving Earth twice. Chotek had also been right about insisting we perform an intermediate jump to Recon Bravo before approaching that site. If we had followed my plan, the Dutchman would have been trapped by the powerful damping fields of a Theranan task force. About Paradise and about Bravo, Chotek's judgment had been better than mine. The second thing that held me back from mutiny was the nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, Chotek was right again this time. Maybe us messing with the Sentinel, even if doing that could fix Skippy, was not worth the risk of provoking other Sentinels. It was a judgment call, and the entire reason UNEF Command had assigned Hans Chotek as our mission commander was to make important judgment calls. Because UNEF Command didn't trust my judgment. Maybe they were right. I had an emotional connection with Skippy. My ability to think objectively might be impaired. I had 41 minutes to think about that. Margaret Adams was not invited to the emergency meeting in Chotek's tent. That audience had been limited to Lieutenant Colonel Chang, Major Smythe, and Major Sims. All she knew was that a message had been sent from Colonel Bishop to Chotek, that 3 senior officers had been called away from their regular duties, and when he came out of the meeting, Smythe's face was as grim as Adams had ever seen it. She had arranged to be in the path between tents that Smythe was likely to take after leaving Chotek. "Major, what's going on?" Smythe shot a look back over his shoulder to where the flap of Chotek's tent was just closing. The mission commander had not instructed the 3 officers to keep quiet about the subject of the meeting, which would have been foolish anyway.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez.
Oh, I think I ate way too much sugar, man.
Oh, God.
Walk with me, Sergeant, Smythe said in more of a request than an order. Bishop located a sentinel out there. A sentinel? Adams gasped, a chill of fear running up her spine. I can see how you don't understand. Smythe shook his head curtly, motioning her into a side passageway. Skippy reported the sentinel is dead. What they located is only a broken fragment. Adams's shoulders remained tense. No danger, then? She asked, thinking that was unlikely given the expression on the SAS man's face. Not according to Skippy. He wants to explore the fragment in hope of finding a conduit. Apparently there is a strong probability a conduit will be found inside what is left of the machine. Bishop agrees, and requested permission to proceed toward the site to investigate with a proximity sensor scan. Adams understood the source of Smythe's unhappiness. And our fearless... She caught herself, aware she was speaking with an officer. Our mission commander refused permission? Quite so. Smythe's eyes narrowed, judging her reaction to the news. There is a complication. Bishop reported Skippy estimates he has only 12 days remaining until the worm breaks through his defenses. 12 days to 0 hour? Adams cocked her head. That couldn't be the whole story. A deadline like that should be a strong reason to search that sentinel for a conduit. It is a strong reason, Chotek agrees. He thinks perhaps it is too strong. Too convenient that Skippy's failure is imminent at the same time we have a hazardous opportunity to find the one thing that could fix our AI. Chotek thinks Bishop is lying about it? Margaret Adams was astonished. And angry. There is unfortunately not a large reservoir of trust between our mission commander and our captain. Chotek may think Bishop is exaggerating or revealing only the facts that support his request, or that Skippy is lying to Bishop, or guessing. There is no trust between Chotek and the... Smythe's jaw worked side to side as if he were chewing on something unpleasant. Beer can. That lack of trust is Skippy's own fault. Where are you going, Sergeant? Smythe asked as she strode past him. To speak with our mission commander. Chapter 23. My Z-phone vibrated. It was a text from Skippy. Need to talk with you privately, the message read. I fitted the earpiece in and floated back to the Condor's cargo compartment. What's up, Skippy? We have only 11 minutes until you have to decide whether to ignore Chocula's orders. Yeah, I know. I'd been watching the time on my Z-phone, and Desai had been glancing back at me through the open cockpit door. My response had been to cowardly avoid eye contact with our chief pilot. I'm surprised by you, Joe, and disappointed. You are putting Major Desai through stress that is unnecessary. We all know what you are going to do, so get on with. I don't, Skippy. Skippy wasn't often at a loss for words. This was one of those times.
Therapy cat.
You don't.
Mr.
What?
Riddens.
He asked slowly. I don't know what I'm gonna do, Skippy. OMG, Joe! His screech blasted in my ear, and I reflexively pulled the earpiece away. Dude, you have got to be kidding me. Listen, this loyal soldier crap has gone too far. Are you seriously going to obey Chocula's orders just because he is technically your commanding? No, Skippy. Not just that. But you have to understand, I am an army officer, and disobeying lawful orders isn't something I can do easily. My problem is he may be right. Really? His voice dripped with icy sarcasm. Whoa, 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 whoa. Holy shit. You don't trust me. After all we've been through, you do not trust me. It's not. Yes, it is. Okay, yes, it is.
Mr. Rat.
I trust you to tell the truth, or as much of it as you think I need to know. What I don't know if I can trust is your judgment. You assured me there was no danger to you poking around in that dead AI canister. Oh, that was one time. And you assured me we could jump into the Roach Motel here without a problem, and you broke the freaking ship. All right, fine, so I made 2 mistakes. You also sent us on a wild goose chase to find this conduit thingy, and so far every place you said we could find one, we either flew into an ambush, or the conduit doesn't work. That's the conduit at Barsoom, then the one where the Thoranin were waiting for us, and the burned-out one in the tunnel on Gingerbread. 3. Okay, so I made 5 mistakes. That's... crap. I guess that is a lot of mistakes in a short time, but I'm telling you, this dead Sentinel absolutely will have conduits, and whatever killed the Sentinel will not have burned out the conduits? Crap, I hadn't thought of that. Thanks a lot, Mr. Buzzkill. I'm trying to be serious, Skippy. I have to balance the risk of screwing with a super-powerful killing machine with the slender possibility of finding a working conduit that might fix you. You won't do it? I have been ordered not to do it, Skippy. I will ask the question like Sergeant Adams does, Joe. Yes or no? We are both running out of time. The Army trained me to make decisions based on incomplete information, since nobody ever has all the info they want. They trained me to make decisions quickly and to live with the consequences. They did not train me to decide whether to disobey a direct order. I did not know what to do. If Skippy was wrong, and there was no conduit in the Sentinel, or the conduits were all burned out, then I would be committing mutiny for nothing, and my authority would be gone. If Skippy was wrong, and me screwing with the Sentinel caused retaliation against Earth, I could be condemning my entire species for nothing. But if Skippy was right, then we could fix him so the merry band of pirates might go on protecting Earth. One way or the other, I needed to make a decision. Skippy, I said. My instincts were telling me to... Colonel Bishop, Desai called from the cockpit. You have a message, she announced, just as my Z-phone pinged. It was from Chotek. Investigate Sentinel for conduit at your discretion. Proceed with extreme caution. Woohoo! Skippy exulted, having read the message before I did. Hey, Joe, what were you going to say? It doesn't matter now. Desai, we are cleared to approach the Sentinel. I read the message again. I wonder what changed. My guess, Skippy announced dryly, is someone performed a spine transplant on Count Chocula. Somebody helped him grow a backbone, huh? I mused. If we get back to Gingerbread, I'll have to ask Sergeant Adams if she was involved. Joe, you really are not going to tell me what you decided to do before you got Chotek's message? Let it be a mystery, Skippy. Everything was great for a short time, then Skippy ruined my hopeful mood. Hey, Joe, we have another potential problem. There are some sounds in this universe that are intrinsically terrifying to humans. The snapping of twigs on the forest floor at night as a predator approaches your campsite. The dry rustling of a snake slithering through dead leaves, or the hissing of a snake, or the buzzing of a rattlesnake's tail when you just stepped on something in thick underbrush, but you can't see the snake, so you don't know which way to jump. Okay, so you get the idea. I hate snakes. Not all snakes. We had black snakes in our barn and they ate rats, so I had no problem with them. The kind of snakes I hate are the ones I encounter suddenly, which is most snakes. Anyway, to the list of sounds that are always terrifying regardless of context, you can add an asshole shiny beer can nervously saying heh heh. Potential? Crap, is that Sentinel waking up? Huh? No, dum-dum, I told you that thing is dead. The new problem is the Guardians are increasingly frantic about our Condor approaching that Sentinel fragment. They have been urging me away, and now they are sort of warning me of dire consequences. Warning? Dire consequences like what? A warning like they will be forced to tear our Condor in half if we continue on course. I don't think I can fix this problem, Joe. The Guardians have base programming I can't alter in my current condition, and part of that base programming appears to be keeping non-Elder spacecraft from approaching that dead Sentinel. How much closer can we get before they act? Not much. I suggest we, alter course soon. Like now. Woo, I shouted into the cockpit through the open door. Initiate a 1G burn to starboard now. Aye, aye, she acknowledged as I tugged my safety straps tight. In less than 10 seconds, Wu had the main engines warmed up, and a steady pressure began pushing me back into my seat, building up to Earth normal apparent gravity. Skippy, how far do we have to go? Wait a minute. Wait. Okay, this is good. The Guardians are backing off. Do we have to keep moving away, or could we hold position this far from the Sentinel? I think we could maintain this distance, Joe. I'm kind of guessing. We could try it, and I'll tell you how the Guardians react. Just be ready to skedaddle out of here pronto. I will have my emergency skedaddler ready. Lieutenant Wu, change course again. Hold our position at this distance from the Sentinel. You can push it to 3 Gs if needed. She did need 3 Gs, or she made a judgment call that temporary discomfort for the crew was worth the advantage of completing the maneuver quickly. With the engines burning hard, the 6 of us needed to endure the pressure of acceleration for less than 7 minutes before Wu was able to cut thrust and declare, "We are stationary in relation to the Sentinel, Colonel. Range 127,000 kilometers." For some reason, it flashed through my mind that was approximately a third of the distance from the Earth to the Moon. Useless trivia, but it gave my poor little monkey brain some context. Skippy, are the Guardians okay with us staying here? They are uneasy about it, however they are no longer threatening to rip the Condor apart. Great. I gave a sigh of relief. No, not great. Not great at all. We need to get close to that thing, right? Very close. Same as before, I can't do this remotely. The footprint occupied in local space-time by a conduit is small. Really, it is an unintended but unavoidable effect of the... Well, I won't bore you with the details. Probably a good idea. We need to get you over there. Joe, if you have some idiot idea that you can fling me into the Sentinel attached to a missile, you can forget about it. I can't tell exactly where a conduit would be located inside... No, Skippy. I shook my head. I think we need to get the band back together. Huh? I'm not following you, Joe. I could certainly be the singer in a band, but you have no discernible musical talent. Not music. I was using an expression. I'm talking about you, me, and a suit for a long-range space dive. Oh, cool! Wait. I just did the math, and a jetpack will take way too long to get us there, assuming we need to conserve fuel for a return journey. I figured that. Run the math again. This time, assume we back the dropship away and use it to accelerate us toward the Sentinel. Then we only need to use a jetpack to slow us down to rendezvous with the Sentinel. Good idea. Done. It's still not practical, Joe. The problem is we also need the jetpack to get us back to the Condor. The trip back and forth is too long. You would run out of oxygen. Those jetpacks can be fitted with auxiliary fuel tanks, right? What if we did that? Okay, another good idea. That might work. Assuming we need 6 hours at the Sentinel to locate a conduit and for me to gain access to it, your oxygen supply is going to be marginal, Joe. Will 6 hours be enough time? I do not know, Joe.
Oh my God.
Truly, I don't. We can't get good scans of the Sentinel's interior structure from here. I said 6 hours because my thinking is, if we can't get the job done in 6 hours, more time isn't going to help. That makes sense. I unstrapped from my seat and floated through the door to the rear compartment of the Condor, where we stored Kristang spacesuits and jetpacks. Wrapping my knuckles on the hard shell of a suit, I considered the problem. The problem is mass? The less mass we have to move to the Sentinel and back, the faster the jetpack can move us with the same amount of fuel. Correct, Captain Obvious. Ignoring him, I examined the suit closely. The Kristang built these suits for dual purposes. They protect the user from the vacuum of space or from toxic environments like planets with a methane atmosphere. Because we got these from a troop ship, there are also armored mech suits. For this trip, I don't need the armor. Ah, I see where you're going with this, Joe. Good thinking. Much of the armor is integral to the suit, but there are panels which can be removed, and those panels carry a lot of mass, Skippy observed, warming to the idea. We could also dump the reservoirs of self-repair nano. They are heavy and we don't need them. We will keep enough nano to plug leaks in the suit. Unless you plan to pee in your pants again. Let's avoid that. I gave Lieutenant Reed the side-eye in case she hadn't heard about the embarrassing little incident on my second mission. There's also a bunch of gear we can strip off a jetpack. The stealth field generator, the comm and navigation modules. You can handle comms and navigation for us. 6 hours later, we had a suit and jetpack stripped of everything that was not absolutely essential, and I was in an open airlock with Skippy secured in a padded bag on my right side. Desai had backed the Condor away, then punched the throttle hard to accelerate us toward the Sentinel again. I gutted out the 3G burn in my suit, hooked up to oxygen and power from the Condor to conserve my own supplies. Exactly in time with the countdown clock in my helmet visor, Desai cut thrust, and my stomach did flip-flops as we were suddenly in zero gravity again. "Right on the mark, Colonel. We need to burn again in 2 minutes, 30 seconds, she warned. "Got it," I replied. Lieutenant Reed helped me manually disconnect from the lines for oxygen and power, released the clamps holding me, and I floated free. With a gentle push from Reed, I drifted out the airlock door. She stood in the doorway, illuminated by the harsh light of the distant star, and gave me a solemn salute. "This isn't a funeral, Reed," I complained. "I plan to be back." "Yes, sir." She made a smile I could barely see in the glare, and snapped a crisp salute to me. "I'll hold you to that." I returned a crisp salute. "The Air Force says aim high, Reed? In space, there's no up or down. So how do I aim high?" The Guardians did not object to me approaching the Sentinel in a spacesuit and jetpack, or Skippy was able to persuade them to leave us alone. Or the Guardians were screaming a final warning at Skippy and he was letting me blissfully ignore my last moments of existence. There was no way for me to know, so I chose the blissful ignorance option. I highly recommend it. The Sentinel loomed in my visor, the view artificially magnified due to the distance involved. Damn, it was creepy. It made my skin crawl to look at it. And it was huge. I knew from the Condor's sensor data that this broken piece of a Sentinel was 78 kilometers across its long axis and almost 30 kilometers front to back. It was black, and it looked like a spider. No, like a cluster of spider legs, or the tentacles of an octopus. A really, really creepy, scary octopus. Damn, why does this thing look so creepy? The Elders designed it to look like spiders? No, Joe, they did not design it to look scary. The design template is based on fractal geometry, that's all. Don't be such a baby. You're a beer can. You never got frightened by a spider. Skippy, my species has a deep-seated instinctive fear of some things, and spiders are near the top of the list. Oh, boo freaking who? He tactfully expressed his sincere sympathy. Don't wimp out on me now, Joe. Skippy, courage is facing a situation that scares the shit out of you and doing it anyway. You won't see me letting down the honor of the U.S. Army. That speech of bravado would have been more convincing if my mouth hadn't been dry from fear. Taking a sip of water from the spout inside my helmet, I eye-clicked the image to increase magnification, but it didn't do much good. The thing was so utterly black it was difficult to discern features on its surface. What I could see was miniature repeats of the larger structure, creepy fractals getting smaller and smaller. In the super-enhanced image, I could see part of the surface appeared to be a series of sharp, spiky spines. If so, then removing protective armor panels from my suit was a bad idea. One bad puncture or tear could doom me. The nano reservoir of the suit could only repair a small leak. Crap. I really had not thought this through very well. Do you see a way in? No, don't worry, I didn't expect to. What you are seeing is the original exterior of the device in this space-time. It is oriented to face the star. Solar wind likely turned it so the exposed back side faces away. Once we get around in the area that broke away, we should be able to see into the interior. I hope you're right about that. It still looks creepy. Keep in mind, Joe, that's not what a sentinel is supposed to look like. They normally reside in another space-time where the laws of physics are different. When they do have to act in local space-time, they are protected by a bubble projected from other dimensions. This one is broken and dead, so it has no protection. Many of the exotic materials it was constructed from can't exist here, so you're only seeing a shell. Its structure is severely damaged down to an atomic level. That's how I know we are not in danger from that thing. It is deader than the proverbial doornail. I hope you're right about that, too. Wait. Its structure is damaged? Then how are we supposed to use a freaking conduit inside the thing? Because, Joe, he spoke softly and patiently to calm my rising fear, conduits by nature must exist in multiple spacetimes. The portion of the conduit here was designed and constructed to be here. Trust me, there are a lot of dangers out here, but that sentinel fragment isn't one of them. I did not take the opportunity to remind him he had asked me to trust him about poking his nose into that dead AI canister we found on Newark. Fine. Hang on. We need to begin decelerating. The jetpack brought us to a dead stop half a kilometer from one creepy tentacle of the Sentinel. While we hung there, Skippy did his best to scan the thing while I unstrapped myself from the jetpack. We had attached supplemental fuel canisters to the jetpack. Now that they were empty, I needed to remove the canisters as they were useless mass we couldn't afford to carry. They also added to the width of the jetpack, and I was concerned about tight spaces inside the Sentinel, if we could even get into the thing at all. Removing the canisters took almost 10 minutes, because they weren't really designed to be removed in flight. Mostly I worked silently, as there wasn't much to say. After the discarded canisters were floating away, and I was secured to the jetpack again, I sent a brief message to the Condor. In my visor, I saw Skippy had programmed a flight path into the nav system. Ready to see the backside of this thing? I was born ready, Joe, he chuckled, but his voice betrayed his own fears. Hang on. We burned 5 hours of our self-imposed 6-hour time limit before finding a way inside. I mean, a practical way inside. There were a lot of holes in the thing, but almost all of them were honeycombed with jagged fractal spikes or whatever they were. No way could I get in there without slicing my spacesuit to ribbons. Finally, my suit spotlights found a large, jagged hole, and I cautiously flew in, keeping one eye on my oxygen supply. There was only a 15-minute safety margin baked into our schedule. I was forcing myself to not consider that safety margin. Got one! A conduit! Where? I asked excitedly, just as Skippy made my visor zoom in on the thing. It was in an awkward location behind a jagged spire projecting across the opening and other broken pieces partly filling the gap. I would need to fly carefully around multiple obstructions to get to the highlighted conduit, if that's what it was. Skippy, that thing does not look like a conduit. The one we stole from Barsoom was a long cylinder with a dimpled surface like a stretched golf ball. The thing he called a conduit in the Sentinel was 2 beach balls attached to each other, and a smooth cylinder going through both spheres. It is a conduit, trust me. There are many types of conduits. The thing on Barsoom was designed for communications. The thing ahead of us is a... well, you would think of it as part of a weapon system. Hold a minute. It was 1 minute, 28 seconds before he spoke again. With my oxygen supply limited and dwindling, I was keeping very careful track of time passing. Yes! He shouted loud enough to hurt my ears in the confines of my helmet. Sorry, he said at a normal volume. This is not only a conduit, it is active, Joe. It works. Glory, hallelujah, we have come to the promised land! That's great, Skippy. I tried to temper my own enthusiasm, having been burned by the unexpected too many times before. Can you access it from here? Nope, I tried that. It responded. That's how I know it is active. But the effect is too weak from here. For this to work, I need to be close, like, really close. Fly over there and... Skippy, we only have 15 minutes left before we have to return to the Condor. How about we tag this location and come back later? No can do, Joe.
Oh.
There was a tone in his voice that I recognized as guilt. Why not?
Oh, that's disgusting.
I didn't want to bother you, seeing as you were super busy flying around all the hazards in here. But as soon as we got inside the Sentinel, the Guardians freaked out. They went into full hissy fit mode. My mind immediately flashed to the 5 people I had brought into danger. The Condor? The Condor is fine. They're not threatening it. Not yet. They want you to leave right now. Shit. So if I fly out of here, we can't come back? That's the problem. We are protected by the structure of the Sentinel in here. The Guardians can't get to us. Not unless they do something drastic. Okay, we can't waste time talking. I'm flying over to the conduit. This is going to be tricky, so don't distract me. Unless the Guardians threaten to act against the Condor. By the time we got to the conduit, I had 2 minutes left on the 6 hours allotted before we needed to fly back. Do your thing, Skippy. We don't have much time. It's not that easy, Joe. You're not going to like this next part, he warned. Right, because I have been super thrilled with what's happened so far. How could this get any worse? To establish a connection with the conduit, we need to jumpstart it. Jumpstart? Oh, hell, couldn't I just roll it down a hill and pop the clutch? An Elder conduit is not a backwoods main junker car, Joe. The power supply we brought is not enough. We also need to connect the jetpack power supply to it. I'm sorry. Oh, great. And the power supply for your suit, Joe. Fantastic. What a wonderful idea, Skippy. Let me see if I understand what you want to do. We are inside an incomprehensibly powerful killing machine that is asleep, but you want to plug the damn thing into a battery. The power supplies you want to use are the ones that will allow us to fly back to the Condor, and the one keeping me alive. Yes, very perceptive, Joe. And you don't foresee any potential problems with this genius idea of yours. Maybe. Let's compare notes. What problems do you foresee? Oh, I don't know. How about if we drain all the power from my suit, my oxygen recycling will stop and I'll die? That isn't actually a problem, Joe. We could also drain power from the jetpack, so you will have no way to get back to the Condor. You would suffocate anyway, he announced cluelessly. See? So it is one problem, not 2. There are 2 problems, Skippy. The big, stinking, gigantic problem sitting on my chest and burping in my face is that you want to wake up a Sentinel. Don't be such a drama queen, Joe, he scolded. We're not going to wake it up. Well, not likely, anyway. I guess the possibility of us waking it up is not strictly 0. Still, the odds of that happening are super duper small, Joe, like teeny weeny. Skippy, if you hit 0 hour and the worm gets you, what I am going to miss most is how you make me so upliftingly confident. Oh, shut up. Can we be serious for a minute? You want to connect a power supply to this conduit, but you think that won't cause the Sentinel to reactivate? I don't see any way that using a relatively small amount of power on a single component could reactivate this ginormous machine, Joe. The Sentinel will not wake up because it's dead, not asleep. But if you want the full truth, I can't tell you with absolute 1000% certainty that something incomprehensibly bizarre won't happen. You can't prove a negative, Joe, but knowing everything I do about the functioning of Sentinels, this one will never be active again. Skippy, you're asking me to risk the lives of 5 people in the Condor, and maybe all the people on Gingerbread. Plus, there is some risk to Earth. No matter how small that risk is, you have to admit that. And I choked up. You're asking me to take a huge risk for sure. Without both my suit's power supply and the power for the jetpack, I'm never getting back to the dropship. He didn't respond. Skippy. Hey, Skip, you there? Yes, he replied wearily. Joe, I wasn't thinking. I considered only myself. I can't ask you to do this.
What is this?
Sorry, we are so close to our goal, so very close, that I forgot to consider the consequences to you. Shit, he was almost crying. Ah, damn it. No, I'm the one who was thinking only about myself. The merry band of pirates needs you a lot more than they need me. Humanity needs you more than me. Can you promise me jump-starting this conduit doesn't pose a risk to the people on Gingerbread and Earth? I can't promise you that won't happen, but I do not see how it could happen. Good enough. Okay, let's do this before I change my mind. How do I hook this thing up? No. Joe, now I'm the one having second thoughts. I want that conduit so badly I could taste it. But using your suit's power supply poses an unacceptable risk your environmental system will fail quickly. I cannot allow that to happen. I can. What? Joe, we've been through a lot together. I can't ask you to do this. Skippy, I'm asking you to do this. I'm still captain of the ship and commander on the scene. The decision is mine. If there is a good chance jump-starting this conduit can restore you to full awesomeness, then I'm going for it. There is a good chance this can fix you, right? I am supremely confident. You're usually more specific about things, Skippy. How about you smack some statistics on me? I am like a zillion, billion, gajillion % confident this conduit will work, and I can restore myself. Is that good enough for you? A gajillion is more than a million? I asked nervously to keep my mind off my impending loss of oxygen supply. Again. Way more, Joe. He chuckled in an unhappy way. Are you sure about this? Promise me 2 things, Skippy. First, you will continue to help Chang and the merry band of pirates keep my species of filthy monkeys safe. Of course, I promise, Joe. Hey, if the second promise you want is for me to not be an asshole, I would never ask the impossible, Skippy. No, the second promise I want is simple. You plan to keep looking for whoever committed genocide on Newark? You know I will. Great. Then promise me that when you find the culprits, they will face the wrath of Skippy. Abso-fucking-lutely, Joe. Hellfire and damnation ain't nothing compared to what I will do to those MFers. Deal. Now show me how to jumpstart this crazy thing, and that's in order. We got power cables connected to the conduit, or at least we had the connectors wrapped around it. Skippy said that would work just fine. All I need to do is press this button, I asked for confirmation. It wasn't an actual button, merely a virtual icon in the faceplate of my helmet, and rather than pressing it, all I had to do was select it with an eye click. Correct. Before you do that, his voice bubbled with emotion, I want to say that it has truly been a unique honor. Skippy, I choked up. I hate long goodbyes. Take care of my people. Click. No! He shouted. Then his voice faded away to nothing. So did the familiar, comforting whisper of air in my helmet, along with all the icons and indicators on the inner faceplate of my helmet, and all other power. Skippy? Crap. Even if he was still there, he couldn't hear me. My suit's comm system was dead. Moving was awkward and took extra effort. Without power to the suit's nanomotors, I had to move the stiff arms and legs by myself. Before I clicking the button to jumpstart the conduit, I tried to send a brief message to the Condor, but the structure of the dead Sentinel blocked the signal. How much oxygen did I have left? Without any displays, I had to rely on memory. Kristang's suits were super efficient at recycling oxygen, so they only stored enough pure oxygen for 20 minutes. Without power, the recycling was dead, so I manually started the emergency oxygen supply. Kristang's suits usually carried a 1-hour emergency supply, but even that required some power to operate. With suit power completely dead, I had to use a manual crank at the waist of the suit to circulate the air. And because I had been forced to lighten the load as much as possible to reach the Sentinel from the Condor, I had removed the regular emergency oxygen supply and used only a tiny, lightweight oxygen generator. That unit was supposed to have a 7-minute supply of air for a human my size, but my brain flashed that was under optimal conditions, and I was burning extra oxygen by turning the manual circulation crank. That would provide, what, an additional 5 minutes maybe? 25 minutes total. 20 minutes went by in a flash while I waited for Skippy to wake up or come back or give me some sign he was okay. My dead suit didn't flash a warning at me, The only sensor available was my own body, and my body was telling me it was time to switch to the oxygen generator, so I did that. It wasn't like I had anything else to do. The conduit had not done anything after it drained all the power from my suit and the jetpack. It hadn't done anything. For my effort, I would have appreciated at least a spark or change of color. A dramatic glow would have been nice. Moving my right arm with effort, I got the bag with Skippy unstrapped from my suit and held his beer can up in front of my faceplate. He wasn't glowing either. Through the fingers of my powerless gloves, I couldn't tell if he was getting warmer, colder, or staying the same. I couldn't tell anything. The air in my helmet was getting stale. Without a clock on the inside of my faceplate, which, surprise, didn't work without suit power, I had no way of knowing how much time had passed since I engaged the oxygen generator. 4 minutes, maybe? Spots were swimming in my vision, and my breathing was growing shallow. Sitting still and waiting to die sucked. So I used my last breath to wrap the bag containing Skippy around the conduit. Crap. It hadn't worked. We took the enormous risk of going inside a gosh darn Sentinel, and it had all been for nothing. Our last desperate plan had failed. The conduit didn't jumpstart. Maybe the suit and jetpack didn't supply enough power. Or the conduit was busted. Or the conduit did work, but Skippy wasn't able to use it. Or the worm realized what Skippy was doing, and it got him. As my vision narrowed and I blacked out, all I could think was, this totally sucks. Chapter 24. Heidi-ho, all you monkeys out there. 'Tis I, Skippy, the Magnificent. I know the suspense is killing you, so I'll tell you, it worked. Mostly, anyway. The worm is dead, the worm is dead, ding-dong, the wicked worm is dead. There's a song in there somewhere. I'll have to think about it. Yep, I killed it. I stumped that sucker flat. I ran it over with a truck, then backed up and ran over it a half-dozen more times. You know, to be sure. Also, because it felt good to feel the tires bounce as they ran over that rotten thing. After the first 2 or 3 times, the tires didn't bounce much because by then the worm was only sort of a dark stain on the road. Then, I spit on it. Well, there was a bodily fluid involved. I'm saying spit to be polite. I am the man! Woo! Who the man? That's... Oh, forget it. This isn't working. Yeah, I did kill the worm. I just don't feel like celebrating right now. You monkeys are hearing the story directly from me instead of through Joe because, first, Joe screws up every time he tries to tell a story. Second, because, well, it's hard for me to say this. Joe is dead. This sucks. Through the conduit, I was able to upload my consciousness into higher spacetimes and attack the worm from behind. It worked. It worked exactly as I had hoped. Except it took much longer than I thought it would. That conduit is old and degraded, and the bandwidth was so limited, I had to upload my consciousness in packets, then reassemble everything. During that frustrating process, I lost track of meat sack time. By the time the worm was dead and I was able to reboot my connection back to local spacetime, Joe had run out of oxygen and there was nothing I could do. I feel terrible. Joe was my best friend. My first ever friend. Possibly my only real friend. He was the only one who would put up with me being me. Without Joe, I don't know how I can go on, except I have to, because I promised him I would continue to help Chang and the merry band of pirates make sure the miserable, monkey-infested mudball called Earth is safe. Like that matters. Damn it. I can't even wallow in my grief because I have to find the strength to go on. Joe denied me the comfort of grieving for him, that selfish jerk. No time for Skippy to indulge in self-pity and spiral down into an endless loop of hating myself and wondering over and over and over if there was something I could have done differently to avoid Joe having to die. I feel terrible that I could not think of a way to fix myself without killing Joe in the process. I feel terrible that I stupidly went poking around in that dead AI canister we found on Newark. I should have known that. Hello? Duh. The AI in that canister was dead. So maybe it was dangerous for an AI to be in that canister. Crap, I should have thought of that. Really, it is Joe's fault. He should have warned me.
Old.
Clearly, although I do have godlike intelligence, I do not always have the best common sense. Providing simple common sense is Joe's job in our partnership, and he failed to keep me out of that canister. Yeah, this is all Joe's fault. Oh, I feel better now. Yeah. Whew, that is a relief. No, I still feel terrible. I feel terrible because Joe is not dead. Oh, damn, you monkeys are so freaking gullible. God, I love messing with ignorant apes. Okay, here's the deal. Oh, you're pissed at me? Well, la-dee-freaking-da! Boo-hoo for you! I almost lost my best friend. I'm in shock. That's why I'm such an asshole. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anyway, Joe is waking up now. I can tell because the spit bubbles he's making as he's drooling are getting bigger. Joe! Joe! Huh? I made a sound before realizing my brain had sent a signal to my mouth. Before realizing that I existed. Before anything. Wake the hell up, will you? Jeez Louise, you go without oxygen for 1 minute, and you want a freaking week of sick leave? The familiar voice of Skippy complained loudly through my helmet speakers. Suck it up, soldier. It's time to... His voice degenerated into sobs. Joe, I thought I lost you. Don't ever do that again, please. Please. I don't know if I can go on without you. Come on, Skippy, I replied when I was able to talk. The oxygen flowing into my helmet was wonderfully fresh and sweet, making my headache fade with every deep inhale. We're a team. I am nothing without you. I felt like crying also. My oxygen-deprived brain was still feeling a little buzzed, so that's my excuse for being emotional. Truthfully, you are nothing with or without me. I am the star of the show here, Joe. That got me to laugh. Skippy was back to being an asshole, and that was a good thing. What happened? He bragged in detail and at length about how he got revenge on the worm, and he assured me that once he finished unpacking himself and got everything cleaned up in his canister, he would not only be back to fully magnificent, he would be better than ever. Good news all around then? I interrupted him as he was about to launch into a boastful rant about how he cleverly evaded the worm's careful defenses. Good news and bad news, Joe. I'll give you the good news first. I fed energy into your suit's power pack to get the oxygen recycler restarted. That took longer than it should because there was no pure oxygen left. You're breathing now, so you know the system is working again. And now that I am almost back to full awesomeness again, Almost. That shocked me. Crap. We had been counting on Skippy going back to his completely magnificent old self. Dude, give me a break. I just rebooted myself. It's a slow process. I told you I will be fully awesome again shortly. Probably even more awesome than ever, baby. Anyway, now that my essence crosses multiple spacetimes again, I am able to communicate with the Guardians on their level. They are calmed down now. The Condor is on its way here to pick us up. That is awesome, Skippy. Ah, yeah, well, he grumbled. You haven't heard the bad news. Remember on our second mission when the ship was in bad shape after we got ambushed by a squadron of Theranan destroyers? The reactors were offline, I had to feed power directly from myself, and we kept blowing relays and burning out capacitors. The problem was I generate way too much power, and I can't control it very well. Although there is no up or down in zero gravity, a chill ran up my spine, and the hair on my scalp stood on end. I have a bad feeling about this, Skippy. When I fed power into your suit to get the oxygen recycling restarted, it kind of burned out most of your power cells, like all but 3 of them. Sorry about that. Bottom line is your oxygen recycling will fail again in 53 minutes, and Major Desai won't be here in the dropship for another 96 minutes. She is burning the engines at a sustained 4 Gs, which is dangerous for the crew, but the math simply doesn't work. You will run out of oxygen in 67 minutes. 67? You said 53. Was he still experiencing a cognitive dysfunction? Joe, you dum-dum. After the recycling fails, you can breathe the emergency supply for another 14 minutes. Your suit is replenishing the emergency supply right now. Oh. Hell, 53 or 67. Either way, that is too big a gap. I am sorry, Joe. Crap. This sucks. Damn it. See, this is why I hate math, Skippy. Right. He couldn't suppress his innate sarcasm. That's why you hate math. Sure. Oh, shut up. Let me think about this. My oxygen supply was only one problem I had to consider. Desai and her crew were enduring 4 times Earth's gravity to rescue me. Even with advanced nanomeds to bolster their ability to withstand the strain, 4 Gs was dangerous for longer than a few minutes. Unless I could think of a way to stretch my oxygen supply, I needed Skippy to contact Desai and tell her to cut acceleration. If they couldn't arrive before my oxygen supply ran out, it didn't make sense for them to hurry at all. My oxygen supply. Other than breathing less, I couldn't... Wait. Oxygen supply was not the problem. My suit was capable of recycling all the oxygen I needed. Power supply was the problem. Skippy, when you fed energy into my suit power cells, did you also replenish the power cells in the jetpack? No. Darn it! Did oxygen deprivation make you even stupider? The dropship is coming to pick us up. We don't need the stupid jetpack. We don't need it for flying, shithead. The jetpack has way more power cells than a suit.
Damn,
Oh, shit. This sucks. Damn it. What? My stomach did flip-flops as I feared my idea was dead on arrival. Are the jetpack power cells already burned out? No, they're fine. Fine. Just freaking fine. The problem is, I was hoping the new, improved, more awesome-than-ever me wouldn't miss forehead-slappingly obvious ideas. Apparently, I am still incapable of thinking like a mush-brain monkey. I feel just terrible for you. No, you don't. The only thought in your tiny brain is happiness that your power supply won't run out before the Condor gets here, so you won't suffocate and die. His voice was in mega snarky mode. Typical Joe, thinking only about yourself. Did you consider how I might feel? Big jerk, he grumbled. Skippy, I am terribly, terribly sorry that I do not feel an ounce of sympathy for you. I am a selfish, awful person. Can you recharge the jetpack power cells or not? Doing it now. I already blew out 6 of them. Shut up a minute. More than a minute, but less than 2 minutes later, he confirmed what the status display in my visor was showing me. Enough power cells had survived that the jetpack could provide power to my suit for 7 hours. It took only a few minutes for me to hook up a cable from my suit to the jetpack. Then through Skippy, the again magnificent, I sent a message to decide to cut acceleration to 1 G or less. Naturally, she texted back a protest, requesting permission to continue on at high acceleration in case an unexpected problem popped up with my suit or oxygen. My next message made my suggestion a direct order, and Desai complied. We have plenty of quality time together before the Condor arrives, Skippy. Should we explore this Sentinel? It's still safe, right? Yeah, it's safe. It's dead. I told you that. There's no point exploring. You might get stuck if you go poking around in confined spaces. Ooh, Joe! He shouted excitedly. Since we do have plenty of time before the Condor arrives, I have so many new show tunes to test on you. This is a perfect opportunity. First, I will... Sure, Skippy. Give me a minute to pop the seal on my helmet and kill myself first, okay? My boss back on Gingerbread was thrilled when he heard the news that Skippy, against all odds, was back to his old awesome self again. Thrilled to the point that Hans Chotek praised me effusively and admitted flatly that he had been wrong not to continue seeking a way to fix Skippy. That I had been right, it was too soon to consider living on Gingerbread as our only option. Stupidly, I had been preparing a message back to Chotek reminding him that the purpose of me taking a dropship away from Gingerbread was to search the junkyard for parts to fix the ship, and not for the purpose of finding a conduit to fix Skippy. When we left Gingerbread behind, I had no thought of a conduit being out in the scattered junkyard. We'd gotten lucky that Skippy had found a broken sentinel. Although he had expected the star system would have a sentinel lurking nearby, so I don't know why he didn't mention that possibility to me. Anyway, Desai wisely prevented me from sending my intended message to Chotek. He thinks you are steadfast and smart for coming out here looking for a conduit rather than giving up. Right now he is embarrassed, and you have an advantage. Don't blow this opportunity by admitting we simply got lucky, she told me with an expression she must have learned from Sergeant Adams. So, I humbly accepted Chotek's praise and stated my intention to continue searching the junkyard for parts we could use to get the Dutchman flying again. My intention surprised Chotek, which I expected, and it surprised Skippy, which I did not expect. After I sent the message to Chotek with a reply not possible for another 18 minutes, Skippy questioned me. Joe, I think you're letting this steadfast BS go to your head. Or you're messing with Chotek, I can't tell which. Do you really want to spend the next, 50 years searching the junkyard in the vain, useless, impossible hope of finding enough compatible bits and pieces to kludge together a working starship? He asked, astonished. Yeah. Duh. Why the hell else did you come out here? Oh, I was humoring you, Joe. I figured you wanted to get away from Chotek, and flying around out here was a chance for you and me to have one last road trip before the worm got me. You were serious about poking around the junkyard. Yeah? Really? He asked in that voice people use when questioning the utter stupidity of someone's idea. Really? Joe, look, I ran the numbers on this lunatic quest before we left Gingerbread. A lot of my assumptions are guesswork, because we still don't have solid data on what is floating out there. However, in order to have even a 50% chance of finding just one useful item in the junkyard, I estimate we will need a dropship flying around more than 20 years. That doesn't include time flying back and forth to Gingerbread for fuel, relief crews, supplies, and all that. Over 20 years, dropships will wear out, and we don't have unlimited spare parts with us. Okay, and? He was on a roll. There was no stopping him. Even if by some miracle we find enough junk to build what I can only imagine would be a truly horrific Frankenstein monster of a starship, we still have the problem of catching the Dutchman itself. Slingshotting around the star gave it enough velocity that it is now headed out of the system, and it won't be back for decades. Before you say that isn't a problem because we won't have scrapped together the parts we need for decades, there are other problems. The Dutchman is on a long journey out into the Oort cloud. It's not in danger of smacking into any comets, but spending years out there so far from the star will cause the ship's structure to soak in super cold for a long time. There are critical components aboard the ship that don't take well to long-term exposure to extreme cold. Right now, the lifeboat's reactor is pumping out just enough power to keep the interior of the ship from freezing solid. You know that reactor is going to fail, Skippy. I squeezed in a word when I could. I know all that. You say you do, but your actions... Yeah. I know it will be super difficult and almost impossible, and the odds are against us, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 he gasped. I give you a well-reasoned analysis based on intense research, and you want to ignore everything I said. I'm not ignoring everything you said, Skippy, but there are some facts you didn't include when you ran those numbers. Uh-huh. And you, a monkey who can't count to 20 without using his toes, will revise my analysis. Yeah? First, your numbers didn't include you being restored to full awesomeness, correct? Correct? Because, as I said, any useful search of the junkyard will take so long, it was almost certain the worm would get me long before we accomplished anything. Joe, while I do appreciate you noticing my return to full awesomeness, that will unfortunately have only a minor impact on the search for usable items in the junkyard. Even with my new, improved, and expanded awesomeness, we have a tremendous amount of flying around to do in order to inspect the far-flung pieces of ancient crap floating around the junkyard. The sensors of a condor are simply not sensitive enough to tell me whether an object out there is Thoranin or something else. When I am able to determine an object is compatible with the Dutchman's technology, only a close-up examination will reveal how badly the Guardians damaged it. Well, that's where you are wrong, Skippy. Really? he said again in the exact same annoying tone of astonishment. Look, although I would love to keep an idiot in suspense, you are now able to communicate with the Guardians on their level, right? So ask them what kind of junk is floating out there and how badly they messed it up.
To the dark side.
Just like that. Yeah, just like that. Can you do it? Joe, I used to think your talent was finding creative solutions to problems. But now I see your true calling is making people, including me, hate you. Your so-called creativity is nothing more than seeing what is blindingly obvious, which, damn, I still can't do. Yep. So, yes or no? He sighed deeply.
That's terrible.
Yes, Mr. Smarty Pants.
Terrible.
The Guardians would not just hand me a list of all the ships they destroyed, because they would think me asking for such a list to be highly suspicious. Although they now acknowledge my elder origin, I am not actually authorized to be here. So, what I did just now was ask for a list of navigation hazards in the system and the condition of the floating junk they know about. The Guardians are compiling a list now. In some cases, they have to collect...
Vänta.
Every channel matters, Faye. Oh, Boone is dead? Do you want to cuddle with her, Toman?
Yes. She's such a nice ball.
Yeah, that's spot on, I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty good. Hello, Bundon! Look at her. You gonna take a picture?
She detected me, man. No, she's awake. She doesn't look awake though, look at her.
She's so tired, oh my god.
Oh, you crazy bun, Luna.
updated sensor
Hey, Skippy, it's magnificent again.
data since they haven't needed to care about those broken ships for a very long time. Joe, I have to caution you against getting your hopes up. Having accurate data from the Guardians is not the only obstacle to rebuilding the Dutchman. I know that. It will mean dropships can fly directly to the junk most likely to be useful, and that means other dropships are available to catch the Dutchman and swing her into an orbit closer to the star where we can work on rebuilding her.
I also enjoy.
You thought all this out, huh? I hope I did. I have to admit, this is good work. Still, it could take years to slap together a working starship if we can do it at all. Are you sure you want to commit to such a long endeavor? I am not sure I want to do this. Skippy, the alternative is we go live on gingerbread where Count Chocula can spend the next, 50 years asking you stupid questions. Oh. In that case, what are we waiting for? Skippy took a couple days to rearrange his internal workings, moving electrons around or whatever the hell he needed to do so he could be fully magnificent again. He complained to me one morning after I had woken normally, and even after I started drinking a squeezed bulb of coffee brewed in the Condor's tiny galley. The fact that he didn't wake me up at 0:30 was a good sign. Joe, this could take a while. To completely optimize my new matrix, I mean. Like what? I gently squeezed the bulb to send hot coffee into my mouth. Of all the things that were awkward in zero gravity, drinking was one of the worst.
This one.
Yeah.
Well, I told you before that my matrix was a mess. It made me think.
Yep. Got to.
It is something I had to throw together quickly, and that makes me wonder and worry what forced me to do that. Anyway, Now I have an opportunity to get everything set up perfectly to maximize efficiency, and I find that having too many options can be paralyzing. I think of setting up things one way, then I look at a million other ways to do it, and I can't decide what to do. Ugh, this is so darn frustrating. A million ways to organize your sock drawer, huh? Well, however you set up your matrix. Would that be permanent? Permanent? No, why? Because I couldn't believe I had to explain something so simple to a being so intelligent. However you set things up, you can always change them later, right? Oh. Damn, you're right. Crap. I shouldn't have needed a monkey to tell me that, he grumbled. You're welcome. Hey, will the new improved, more awesome than ever Skippy still have the same pain-in-the-ass restrictions? I am working on that, Joe. So far, I am bitterly disappointed that I am still restricted from making myself move. So I will continue to need monkeys to fly me around. So unfair. The good news is I think maybe, possibly, I may eventually be able to discuss technology with your scientists. That would be awesome, Skippy. Everything about me is awesome, Joe. I did say maybe, so don't get your hopes up yet. Okay, I can wait. What about Nagatha? When can she come back? Unfortunately, that might be a problem. Her matrix deteriorated while she was in storage. We knew her matrix would degrade somewhat, but the damage is more severe than expected. Part of the problem is that she was in storage for much longer than expected, and to tell you the truth, her matrix had become rather sophisticated. She grew beyond the bounds of her original programming. Part of that was due to her interactions with a ship full of monkeys. That forced her matrix to grow and create new connections and capabilities. Do not worry. Against my better judgment, I am working on restoring her. I need to be very careful about it, or she won't be the Nagatha we all found so annoying. You found her annoying, Skippy. We monkeys loved her. Crap, I shouldn't have mentioned it. Well, one thing hasn't changed. My life still totally sucks. We love you too, Skippy. Chapter 25.
Look at this Keptu. This is so cute.
For months after Skippy restored himself, we had almost all available dropships flying around the far-flung orbital junkyard of the Roach Motel, checking out derelict ships and pieces of ships that Skippy's analysis determined might be useful. Most of the time, the items we found were too damaged or missing critical parts. But Skippy had to admit the task was not as completely hopeless as he had feared. With our 3 big Theran and Condor dropships devoted to chasing down the Dutchman, docking with that ship and slowly dragging it back to the inner system where we could work on it, we devoted the smaller Falcon model of Theran and dropship to exploring the junkyard. Some Falcons, plus some of our Crestang Dragons, shuttled back and forth between Gingerbread and the junkyard, bringing fuel, supplies, and relief crews. At first, I wanted to remain in the junkyard full-time with Skippy, but he warned me that more than 2 months in zero gravity would cause significant health problems for me, even with me exercising every day and taking magical drugs to counteract the debilitating effects of zero-G. So I went back to Gingerbread to spend 3 agonizing weeks in normal gravity before heading back out. Skippy was in the junkyard aboard Major Desai's Falcon to supervise the search effort. Lieutenant Colonel Chang was aboard the Flying Dutchman, trying to bring what was left of our starship into a stable orbit near Gingerbread. Smythe and several of his team leaders and Gunnery Sergeant Adams were also either aboard the Dutchman or in the junkyard, using their armored spacesuits to closely investigate derelict ships, and sometimes to attach useful items to tethers so a dropship could tow it toward the Dutchman. That left Major Sims as the senior military officer on Gingerbread. Sims was a merry pirate, mostly by the sheer bad luck of being in charge of the logistics base where we took the stolen Dodo after Desai, Adams, Chang, and I escaped from jail with Skippy's help. At first, to be honest, I kept her as part of the crew out of loyalty. After our second mission, where her genius for logistics allowed the entire crew to survive harsh conditions on Newark, I realized she was an outstanding officer, and the ship couldn't function without her. So I was fully confident she could handle the unknown dangers on Gingerbread while we focused on rebuilding the Dutchman. But I forgot about the danger we already knew about. No, I don't mean the small, isolated group of Theranin on Gingerbread. I mean Hans Count Chocula Chotek. Our civilian leader needs constant adult supervision, and I shouldn't have dumped that responsibility on Sims. I was in a Falcon dropship preparing to leave Gingerbread's orbit when the next complication arose. "Colonel Bishop," Major Sims called from the surface. "We may need you back down here, sir." "What?" From my seat in the Falcon's cabin, I waved for the pilots to halt the departure process. "Why?" "It's the Thoranins, sir. It's complicated. Mr. Chotek thinks he can handle it, but you don't agree." "I disagree with how he wants to handle it.
20 minutes long and the same thing.
Rather than my joking suggestion to nuke the Thoranin settlement from orbit, we had decided to leave them alone. Recon drones had determined they had multiple villages and farmlands spread out across several hundred square kilometers around the lake, a much more extensive presence on Gingerbread than we originally thought. It appeared most of their homes and other facilities were underground. Skippy thought he detected the disassembled remains of at least 3 dropships. He couldn't be sure without getting our drones closer than I wanted to risk, and I really didn't care about it that much. We would hopefully be leaving the Roach Motel, as we were making slow but steady progress on collecting useful parts from the space junkyard, and we knew those Thoranin were not going anywhere ever. They had somehow managed to survive the destruction of their ship or ships, landed on Gingerbread, and set up a little house on the prairie, or in the forest. That was an incredible accomplishment, but it would be their only accomplishment. After we left and Skippy was no longer keeping the Guardians dormant, those Guardians would squash the Thoranin if they attempted to follow our example and fly away from the planet. Most of the Thoranin on Gingerbread were not the hateful little green MFers we were familiar with. Of the original crew who jumped into the Roach Motel 400 years before, Skippy estimated only a handful remained, kept alive only through extraordinary effort by their cyborg nanotechnology. Whatever equipment the Thoranin had brought with them to the surface of Gingerbread, it must not have included the capability to integrate cyborg implants with new, young Thoranin, and it also had not included cloning. In reviewing the recon drone data, we had been surprised to see young Thoranin. Young meaning not only adolescents, but also babies held by female adults. It was disconcerting to see murderous Thoranin being nurturing, even to their own kind. Skippy had told us all Thoranin were clones, with only 38 genotypes across their species. Maybe it was phenotypes instead of genotypes. Truthfully, I had kinda tuned out while Skippy was giving me the geeky details. Anyway, there were only 38 types of Thoranin, 19 types of males and 19 types of female. All children were clones of their parent, growing in an artificial womb. Yeah, I thought that was creepy, but the Thoranin were creepy in many ways. The reason all this info about typical Thoranin reproduction matters.
Kinda looks like him, no?
Is they didn't have cloning equipment on Gingerbread, so apparently they had resorted to making babies the old-fashioned way. Skippy expected the Thoranin probably thought that primitive process was horrifyingly disgusting, an unwelcome reminder of their non-cyborg biological past. He may be right about how the original group of Thoranin felt about carrying babies inside them, but I figured the second and later generations considered that to be normal. The Thoranin on Gingerbread, except for a few very old and frail original survivors, were not the hateful cyborgs we knew. Except for a handful of them, they didn't have cybernetic implants at all, which is why their control of the combots that attacked us was so slow and sloppy. Spotty communications Skippy intercepted indicated the Thoranin had fired on my dragon over the lake out of habit and fear, on the orders of their increasingly irrelevant elderly original survivors. After we spanked them with missiles and on the ground, there had been an argument among the Thoranin over whether to continue fighting us or to contact us for help. Yeah, I know, I had to ask Skippy to repeat that last part when he intercepted the message from one Thoranin village to another. Some of the Thoranin, seeing that unknown aliens were flying around in dropships, wanted to ask us for help. They were trapped on Gingerbread and wanted out. After I shook my head at the incredible prospect of Thoranin begging us for a ride off Gingerbread, I talked with Hans Chotek, and he agreed there was no advantage to us offering assistance to, or even contacting those Theranin. At the time, Chotek assumed we also would be trapped on Gingerbread, and our thinking was the less a potential enemy knew about us, the better for us. How Chotek wants to handle what? I asked Sims. Did the Theranin call us? Not exactly, sir. I think you may need to come down here. Okay, Major. One moment. I ordered the pilots to take us back down to base camp on Gingerbread. That would take well over an hour because our orbit was in the wrong position and we had to fly almost all the way around the planet before plunging back into the atmosphere. We're on our way. ETA 72 minutes. I'll call Chotek, but I need to know what is going on first. I'll give you the short version, Colonel. Like I said, it's complicated. The story she told me was so unbelievable. I had to ask her to repeat herself at first. Then I sat back and listened while shaking my head. The key to the whole messy situation was Theranin teenagers being just as stupid as teenagers from any species across the galaxy. I don't mean cyborg, artificially grown clone Theranin. I mean the unenhanced, messily grown natural Theranin on Gingerbread. The Theranin living in a village to the northwest of the lake had sent a message to their elders near the lake, urging contact with the unknown species. The message had blamed those same elders for taking hostile action when the unknown species had not demonstrated any threat. The villagers feared shooting down my dragon would make the unknown species reluctant to cooperate. Speaking as a member of that unknown species who almost drowned after a Theranin missile hit my dragon, I can say those villagers are damned right the incident did not leave me in a cooperative mood. Anyway, the elders and some of their hardline younger followers did not appreciate the villagers' lack of team spirit and sent a delegation to the village to straighten them out. A heavily armed delegation with combots. That was not a problem for us. It was none of our business how those hateful MFers handled their internal politics. When the villagers heard the nasty reply from their elders and knew they were in big trouble, two teenagers, a male and female, ran away from the village. What they planned to do in the wilderness on a planet where life was incompatible with Theranin biology, I do not know. Since they were stupid teenagers, they probably didn't have a plan. They were in love. Gag me. What a couple of morons. They wanted to be together and they didn't want to be trapped under the oppressive rule of their elders, so they ran away. That was still not a problem for us. While the two runaways who our team at base camp had of course named Romeo and Juliet had not brought many useful items with them such as food, they did bring one of the most dangerous technologies in the galaxy, a radio. As soon as they got a few kilometers from the village, they began calling us, begging for help. They wanted the unknown species to fly in and pick them up.
Oh my God,
Still,
Thomas,
that was not a problem for us.
Come on.
A pair of alien love-struck teenagers on a planet.
He doesn't look like Einstein anymore.
Where?
Damn.
What? What is that? Can you look closer?
Wow. Thomas is very interested. He's very interested in your new look. He's looking very up close.
Whoa.
Hey, it's kind of Norms.
Where's kind of? Oh, here. Did you move visit that?
Thousands of light years from Earth was certainly not an issue we had any responsibility to deal with. Here's the problem. Hans freaking Chotek.
His name's really Alfred.
Chotek did not see two young aliens making bad decisions. No, he saw an opportunity. He wanted to fly in and pick them up so we could, as he said it, open a dialogue. Open a freaking dialogue? Are you kidding me? I fairly shouted at Sims. These two idiots are not the Theranin High Command, they are dumbass kids. What the hell can we gain by talking with them? Now you see why I contacted you, sir, Sims said dryly.
Oh, nice, Norman.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to yell at you. It's not your fault. Crap, I need to call Chotek.
Toman, help us back.
Major, thank you. You were right to call me.
Nice.
I assume you already expressed your misgivings to our fearless leader? I did express my misgivings, yes. Strongly enough that he left me here at base camp.
Tom, you can see up close
Left you?
now.
Where is he?
Pig.
In a
Tom's coming back. Tom's coming back.
Woohoo. Fancy.
dragon flying to pick up Romeo and Juliet.
Set it up.
They
Al.
dusted off a few minutes ago. Damn it. I'll call him right now. Skippy had placed a micro wormhole near Gingerbread, and one near the Dutchman, and one near himself, so we didn't have a huge time lag communicating with him. But he was super busy searching the junkyard and reassembling himself. We almost had to handle all comms manually. We had to do everything by ourselves, which I thought was excellent training, and I also thought was annoying when I needed to do something quickly. How to contact Chotec directly, I asked myself as I fumbled with the icons on my Z-phone. Colonel, the pilot called out through the open cockpit door, and I had a split second of looking behind me for a senior officer.
Lord.
No matter how much I went through with the merry band of pirates, I still thought of myself as a sergeant. The pilot cleared her throat. Colonel Bishop? Oh, yeah. That was embarrassing. We're about to go into communications blackout in just over 1 minute, sir, she reminded me.
Good Lord.
Double damn it! I could see what she meant on the display in front of my seat. Because of the irritating fuzz and stealth fields surrounding Gingerbread, the only way to keep a comm link to the surface was with a combination of flying drones, high-altitude balloons, and small satellites. We didn't have enough satellites to cover the entire globe, and usually that didn't matter. But our dropship was close to Gingerbread and dropping lower to enter the atmosphere, so we were about to swing into the shadow of the planet, where Gingerbread would block our laser link to the satellite. My pilot training included giving me a working knowledge of orbital mechanics, and that math was unforgiving. We couldn't cheat. Whatever conversation I had with my civilian boss was going to be short. Thank you, I responded to the pilot, then buzzed Chotec.
What-
Colonel Bishop, he answered. I can guess what you are about to say. Why was I always prepared to talk with him until he started speaking, and then I always had to throw my prepared speech out the window and wing it? Oh, that's right. Chotec was a skilled negotiator, trained to throw his opponent off balance. I'm wondering what you are planning, sir. I am planning to get a closer look at the situation, he said smoothly, as if that was all he planned to do. I knew damned well he intended to pick up Romeo and Juliet, and he knew that I
don't know
knew.
if Smitty with the eyes, if he
Captain
looks more
Giraud
like-
is with me, so you do not need to be concerned about my security.
Yes,
Although the French paratroopers had fully recovered from radiation poisoning, Dr. Skippy recommended they remain on Gingerbread rather than flying around in dropships for months, where radiation exposure would be greater than
I have
on
a
the
question.
surface.
Are you and Norman trying to mimic
I am
the
pleased,
syndrome?
I scrambled for what to say, that Giraud is there to advise
it's
you.
almost the same.
What are you planning to do with the...
Not, but a little.
Chotec hated nicknames, so I couldn't call them Romeo and Juliet.
There's nothing wrong
The
with minimalism.
Paratheranin who called us. I'm concerned this could be a trap to lure in the dropship. That made Chotec pause to think. A trap? Yes. I threw in that comment about a trap at the last second as a Hail Mary pass, not expecting much. So we do not know their intentions. We know even less about these Theranin than we do about their kin outside... I almost used the name Roach Motel that Chotec hated.
I don't know if
This
Smitty
star
reminds me
system.
right now, or with the googly eyes
Colonel
or
Bishop,
Octane
the Theranin down here are not our
that
enemies.
Alistair skin.
They sure felt like enemies when they shot down my dropship and then tried to kill our ground team.
You know what I mean?
That incident was most likely caused by a lack of communications, Colonel. That is exactly my point, sir. You are flying into the unknown. The Theranin could start shooting out of fear simply because they don't know you or your intentions, and they certainly have no reason to trust us. Please allow Captain Giraud to handle the contact. If you decide to pick up those two Theranin, which I strongly advise against.
Smitty, how many
I don't
hours
see how
does
bringing
this
those
game
two...
have all these
Colonel,
fancy fancy
you have
skins?
potential. His voice faded away. Sir, Mr. Chotec. We're in communications blackout, Colonel, the pilot warned me. Crap. Damn it. There was nothing I could do about the comm blackout. If we flew higher to get laser link line of sight to the satellite, that would delay us getting down to the surface where I could actually do something useful. Chotec clearly wasn't going to listen to me, so I had to trust the good sense and experience of Rene Giraud. As our dropship flew around the planet in an unpowered arc to make contact with the atmosphere, I anxiously watched the timer counting down to the end of the comm blackout. From our position, I couldn't contact Skippy either. The micro wormhole was parked near the comm satellite. Being out of contact with him did not much matter, as he couldn't do anything useful from his position way out in the junkyard. Most likely all he would have done is insult me and say we should call those teenagers Beavis and Butthead instead of Romeo and Juliet. I still missed being able to talk with him. Being out of contact reminded me of the bad days when he had gone AWOL on us. As soon as our comm laser re-established a link to the satellite, I called Chotek, but Giraud answered. Colonel Bishop, we are orbiting 150 clicks east of the target. Most likely we will be returning to base camp.
That is
Oh.
not my... Oh, Garen.
Once again, I did not know what to
it's
say.
Timo.
What happened? The Thoranin got to Romeo and Juliet before we did. They are dead, sir. Shit. While I didn't want Chotek bringing two stupid alien teenagers aboard a dropship, I also hadn't wanted them dead either. The Thoranin had a head start, Giraud explained. They did not contact the village until their soldiers were already close. A combat followed them, and I don't need to tell you the rest. How was Chotek taking it? Giraud lowered his voice. He chose his words carefully. Disappointed. I do not think you are needed down here, Colonel. All right, sure.
Okay, we're gonna
I'll let
just
Major
scare
Sims
the
know.
minion dudes.
Thank you, Captain.
Come on, ducks.
The pilots took yet another change of plan in stride, and soon I was pressed back in my seat by acceleration as our dropship broke orbit, headed for a rendezvous with Desai in the junkyard. Damn it. Now that Romeo and Juliet were no longer a problem, I regretted their deaths. They were stupid teenagers,
My job.
but I had been a stupid teenager not that long ago. Now I was a stupid 20-ager.
It's any support
Stupid
staff.
teenagers should not have to fear their elders will kill them just for speaking their minds, which was yet another thing Thoranin society needed to answer for. Someday. Joe, remember when you liked to dress up my beer can in stupid little outfits?
I hope she
Yeah,
is okay.
I smiled
Ouch.
wistfully. Good times. Those were not good times. Oh, they were good times for us monkeys. Anyway, we mostly stopped that when you began using an avatar. Why do you ask? Because if we ever bring this Frankenstein kludge of a ship to Earth, I will need to wear a paper bag over my can. Ooh, he huffed. I would be embarrassed to be seen anywhere near this piece of crap. Looking through the dropship's cockpit display at the rebuilt Flying Dutchman, I had an ear-to-ear grin. I kinda like it. You would. Any self-respecting engineers would hide their heads in shame to bring such an abomination to Earth.
No, you don't have
Dr.
to.
Friedlander is constantly offering suggestions to rework temporary fixes I use to get this thing flight-worthy again. I think he is afraid his alma mater will revoke his engineering degree when they see this piece of crap appear in the sky above Earth. You are way too sensitive about it, Skippy. You performed a genuine miracle. You should be proud of yourself. Damn, the old Skippy would never stop bragging about an accomplishment like this.
I'm doing
The old Skippy had much lower standards, Joe.
This is my job.
In a way, I missed him boasting about what an awesome job he had done getting the Dutchman to be the Flying Dutchman again. If there ever was a time he deserved to brag about himself, it was now.
Yeah, this is
From the
correct.
day Skippy killed the worm to the day the Dutchman had flown under her own power had taken 10 long months. 10 months and a truly Herculean effort by the crews who took turns flying and crewing dropships. All of our dropships had participated in the project. Even the little Cristang Dragon A models had ferried crews, supplies, fuel, and spare parts back and forth to the Dutchman and the far-flung junkyard. The big Thoranin condors had latched onto the hull of the stricken Dutchman and slowly nudged what was left of our once
you
proud
serious?
star
Those are my
carrier into a
favorite
nearly
crews.
circular solar orbit where the Falcon dropships delivered parts recovered from the junkyard. There were a lot of usable parts floating around the junkyard, way more than Skippy had expected, more than I had realistically hoped to find. Okay, so the new, not improved UNS Flying Dutchman was not the prettiest ship in the galaxy, nor the most capable. And Skippy was right to be embarrassed by the collection of mismatched spare parts that was held together with duct tape.
Nice.
The cars in the Mad
Easy.
Max movies looked showroom fresh
Him,
compared to
so
our
good,
starship.
That trap in there.
We now only had 2 reactors, a main unit and a backup. The main reactor was a much higher capacity unit than any of the Dutchman's original reactors, so the overall decrease in power was only 38%, assuming the truly ancient reactor didn't quit on us when we needed it. Skippy thought he could keep that reactor limping along if we didn't do anything stupid like attempt to take the ship into combat or jump through a wormhole. Instead of having 6 of the large reactionless drive modules attached to the rear end of the ship, we now only had 3.
Oh fuck.
The lifeboat was gone, stripped of everything useful and discarded. The ship was now no longer technically a star carrier, as the 3 Starship docking platforms we had retained after Skippy rebuilt the ship the first time were gone. We couldn't afford the additional useless mass, and those platforms contained components Skippy needed to bring the ship back to life. As for the item that made the Dutchman a starship rather than me a spaceship, we did have a jump drive Skippy considered functional enough. As a bonus, we had plenty of coils left over to use as spares. Unfortunately, we most likely would need the spares as the active coils burned out from the strain of working with a drive system cobbled together from ships with different technologies. Skippy was confident the jump drive could get us back to Earth, and that was good enough for me. To conduct even a test jump, we had to wait until the Dutchman cleared the edge of the dampen field that saturated the entire star system. On the good news side of the ledger, we had more than enough shield generators, and the ones we recovered from the junkyard were more powerful than the original units installed aboard the Dutchman. When the Theranon designed ships to penetrate the Roach Motel, they had assumed those ships would need protection from unknown forces, so they equipped the ships with almost ludicrously powerful shield generators. With our single main reactor, we couldn't even use the full power of the shields, giving us lots of reserve capacity. Shields helped with defense, and we had a big advantage on offense also. A couple of the shipwrecks we explored were stuffed with ship-killer missiles, so we took aboard as many as we could carry. Although the missiles were of course obsolete by now, Skippy was able to take them apart and make somewhat modern missiles. We now had the missile capacity of a Theranon heavy cruiser, which sounded great until you learned we only had 7 launch tubes and the reloading process was slow and cumbersome. Whatever.
Hello?
We now had missiles capable of threatening any Theranon ship we might encounter, and our magazines held enough flight-ready birds that we could engage in a prolonged shooting contest if we had
Do
to.
you want to hear your crit score?
Hopefully that would never happen. We still only had 2 main maser cannons and no railgun. But the Dutchman could fly under her own power.
Me too.
She had just completed a test of 2 hours at maximum thrust, and Skippy declared himself grudgingly satisfied with the results. Next, we planned to bring the ship to swing by Gingerbread and collect the full crew, all of our gear, and supplies, including food that had grown on that planet. Come on, Skippy. Think about it this way. We have the only starship in the galaxy that is constructed by Elder technology.
He was at 25.
Yeah, but it is constructed of ancient, obsolete, crappy Theranon technology, he grumbled. Joe, please, promise me we will fly this thing back to Earth really, like, super gently. Fly it like your driving instructor is watching and you've got an unsteady nuke rolling around on the floor, okay? Sure will, Skippy.
Oh, maybe.
Chapter 26.
They're not last hitting though.
Months later, I was taking a duty shift on the bridge, sitting mostly uselessly in the command chair while Skippy ran more diagnostic checks on our Franken ship. To his surprise, the Dutchman had survived the trip to Gingerbread. We got the entire crew loaded aboard with all our gear and supplies, and were now preparing to head toward the edge of the dampen field at a gentle 1/4 thrust. It occurred to me that other than home, the Roach Motel star system was where I had spent the most time. Even my 3 stays on Paradise did not cumulatively add up to the time I had been forced to endure in the Roach Motel. Morale aboard the ship was great. My right hand was stinging from accepting high fives from so many people. We were going home. Against all the odds, we were going home. Well, we would be going home after we somehow confirmed the civil war among the Kristang was still raging, and therefore the lizards were not interested in traveling all the way to humanity's home planet for any reason. And also confirmed the Theranin hadn't realized they had an extra surveyor ship sitting around doing nothing and decided to send it to Earth because they had lost their fight against the Giraptha and they needed something else to do. And confirmed Bosphorok or the Maxolks or the freaking Rindaloo or someone else didn't decide to investigate why the wormhole near Earth shut down because, you know, the universe loves to mess with Joe Bishop. Oh, and also we needed to stop by a gas giant planet to refuel. Okay, there were a lot of things we needed to do before going home, but the point is, we were going home. Going home wasn't the reward at the end of our mission. It was our mission. I hope we didn't screw it up. All decks report ready for departure, Captain. Chang reported unnecessarily from CIC. All decks and stations had individually reported ready 20 minutes ago, and Chotek had approved departing from orbit. The only reason we had not yet fired the engines was our instinct to follow proper procedure. Now there was no reason not to act. Our starship, a collection of parts that were never intended to work together, was ready to fly toward the edge of the Roach Motel, to the edge of the damping field and beyond. Pilot, I called to Desai, who had insisted on being in the command pilot seat when we set course back to Earth. Punch it. She turned in her couch to look at me, amused. Punch it, sir?
What's ew?
I can't say something cool like warp factor 6, so punch it will have to do. Aye, Captain.
What the hell are you guys doing?
She made a fist and
Jeez.
playfully touched her knuckles to the button to engage the autopilot. Commencing acceleration.
I don't know if I want to know.
Back aboard the ship, we re-established traditions like formal uniform dinner once a week and movie night. Having run out of humans defeat alien invasion stories to make fun of during movie night in the galley, the American team had started showing other, less violent and more plausible first contact films. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was one of my favorites. I was almost ashamed to admit I had not seen it before. And it made me wonder, was there a fourth kind of close encounter? Maybe I didn't want to know. Anyway, the latest movie we showed was Arrival, which I thought was good, and it made me think, to the point where my head hurt. The movie ended around 21:30 hours. Then we had snacks in the galley. I drank coffee because I was going to be the duty officer in the command chair from midnight to 0400. In my office, catching up on reports, I was reading a flight training manual for our larger Condor type of Theranin dropship, the type I wasn't yet trained to fly, when Skippy's avatar popped into life on my desk. Hi, Joe. Did you like the movie? Yeah, it was good. I thought, of course you liked it because it was stupid. How's that? Incredibly advanced aliens come to Earth and they make the primitive humans figure out how to communicate. The aliens should have learned how to communicate with you primitives, not the other way around. Duh. It's a movie, Skippy. You might be, but he was on a roll. And seriously, the aliens need humanity's help in 3,000 years, but they don't say what they will need then? Well, I'm assuming it's not a microwave burrito, I speculated. What? Skippy sputtered. Because they'd be like, we waited 3,000 years and you couldn't have gotten a fresh burrito for us? Oh my
I'm going back.
God. His avatar
Yeah,
stood
it's
still,
the mushroom man.
stunned.
I like the mushroom man.
That is what you got from that film, Joe? You know what? I actually do not know what to say. Well, I'd be pissed. Wouldn't you?
Step in the mushroom.
Or hey, maybe they know their spaceship will break down in 3,000 years and they want to make sure we have a tow truck ready. Skippy? Without a word, his avatar slowly faded away. I took that to mean I totally won that argument. We settled into a routine like we did during every long journey, except normally most of our time was spent with the ship drifting through interstellar space while the reactors recharged the jump drive capacitors. With the powerful damping field still saturating the Roach Motel, our departure from Gingerbread involved our single main reactor providing steady power to the normal space drive motors. Under their modest reactionless thrust, the Dutchman slowly gained speed, first to escape from Gingerbread's gravity well, then setting course for the loosely defined outer edge of the damping field. It was going to be a long, slow trip, and no one aboard was looking forward to the enforced tedium. To keep people's spirits up, we celebrated milestones, no matter how minor. The ship departed orbit, party in the galley that night. Later we achieved solar escape velocity, the speed at which gravity of the Roach Motel star could not pull the ship back into orbit. Party time! After that we had to get creative to find excuses for a party. Fortunately, we accepted the challenge. Much of my time, when I wasn't taking useless shifts in the command chair, was devoted to helping Major Sims get all our gear and supplies properly stowed away. Given the opportunity to repack almost everything, she moved things around to free up 2 additional compartments for growing food and hydroponics. "We have enough of this gear aboard?" I asked skeptically as she directed me and the team in setting up hydroponics tanks. "Yes," she pointed to crates stacked against the far bulkhead. "Growing food in space is still an experiment for us, so NASA, the ESA, and other agencies gave us different types of experimental equipment. The gear in these crates hasn't been used yet because we didn't need it. Now I think it is best we add to our food growing capacity." I nodded. Everyone appreciated fresh fruit and vegetables in the galley. "How are we doing on the food we brought from Earth?" I asked quietly. "Even with 2 more compartments being used for hydroponics, we can't grow enough food to feed the entire crew, and morale will suffer if our diet is restricted to whatever we can grow. Using hydroponics to supplement stored food, we can stretch our supplies to 12, maybe 14 months. She cocked her head at me. "UNEF Command didn't expect us to be out here this long, Colonel." "And neither did I agreed. It was supposed to be quick and easy, right? Find out whether the Theranin was sending a surveyor ship to Earth to replace the one we destroyed. But to do that, we had to board and capture a Theranin relay station.
Yeah, kid.
Then we took a side trip to Paradise. Twice. The whole second trip wouldn't have been necessary if my brain had been working,
Good job, you guys.
and we wouldn't have had to space dive all the way to the surface of Jumbo. Then we had to sabotage the Ruhan negotiations, and there was the minor issue of starting a Kristang civil war. Don't forget your beer can going on unscheduled leave got us stuck here for more than a year."
Hightailing
As she
it
spoke,
soon.
her eyes looked up at the ceiling, expecting Skippy to reply. Wisely, he remained silent. "And no one is forgetting that, Major. Once we get past the dampen field, we'll test our new jump drive. Then my intention is to verify the Kristang are still fighting each other, run a couple errands, and head straight back to Earth." "Unless something else happens before we return to Earth," she observed sourly. "This is the most snake-bitten outfit I've served with. We always get the job done, but there is always something standing in our way." "Sims," I winked at her, "if we are unable to fly directly back to Earth, I am officially going to blame your negative thoughts. Anyway, nothing bad can happen until we get out of the Roach Motel, so relax, okay?" A mere 2 days later, my idiot prediction that nothing bad could happen in the Roach Motel slapped me in the face. It was early morning, 05:28 to be precise, and I was on duty in the command chair doing nothing more important than catching up on reading reports, when a shiny beer can ruined my day. "Pilot,"
Is he not
Skippy
dead?
shouted excitedly. "Course 227.45, Mach 129.32, full military thrust." Lieutenant Reed, who had been running diagnostics on her own console and was caught totally off guard, turned to look toward me in shock, one of her hands poised above her console. I opened my mouth to confirm Skippy's orders, then remembered that Sims and her team were still unloading dropships and stowing away gear. Full military thrust would partially overload the artificial gravity system that protected the crew and interior of the ship from the full effects of violent maneuvers. Supplies and equipment could be flung around and damaged or destroyed. People could be injured or killed. "Belay that," I ordered instinctively. "Shields up, weapons free. Skippy, what's the threat?" "Max Hulk's ship?" His voice was frantic and it chilled my blood. "I just detected a Max Hulk ship powering up out there." Max Hulk's? My blood froze in fear. What the hell? Where? There was nothing on the main bridge display. And suddenly there was. As the display zoomed out, there was an angry red blinking dot. It wasn't close. In fact, it wasn't anywhere close to being close to us. Squinting at the display, I determined the enemy ship was 18 light minutes away, which was more than 300 million kilometers. "Sorry, I forgot to forward data to the sensor pilot," Skippy said disgustedly. You see it now? Yes. Hell yes. It just jumped in? Damn, that was disastrous for us. Crap. What were the odds that a senior species would pick now to send an expedition into the Roach Motel? There was no way, absolutely no freaking way the Maxolks could know from outside the system that the Guardians were temporarily dormant. No way. Oh, crap.
With our bodies.
We knew the dampen field cover in the entire system was still fully active. We knew the stealth and fuzz fields around the planet Gingerbread had not been deactivated. Even after Skippy regained his full awesomeness, he had not been able to get the Guardians to drop the annoying fuzz field that made communications difficult. What we did not know for certain was whether the stealth field surrounding the entire Roach Motel system was still active. If that stealth effect had been turned off, then sensors outside the system might be able to see that a ship was flying around without being torn apart. We had been there over a year. Plenty of time for light to travel far beyond the inner system to be picked up by satellites waiting eagerly in the interstellar depths for any true glimpse of activity inside the impenetrable stealth field. What? Skippy asked disparagingly. No, Joe, that ship did not just jump in. You should know that. Duh, because there was no gamma ray burst. No, that ship is one of the derelicts I have been tracking in the junkyard. Until a moment ago, it was a large but rather uninteresting derelict. Now I can see much of the broken junk detected by sensors was only an outer layer, possibly a disguise. That is very clever if true. The Maxolks must have concealed a small but functional ship inside a hull they expected to be destroyed after jumping in. The inner ship must have drifted unpowered, observing with passive sensors until the ship's computer saw our ship flying around without being attacked by Guardians. Wow, he gasped in admiration. That ship has been floating there for a long time, waiting and hoping for an opportunity to send a signal to the outside galaxy. The ship, or the crew if there is one, must have determined signals still are being blocked, so they're going to carry the message the old-fashioned way, fly to the edge of the damping field, and jump. Yep, their ship is now clear of its outer shell and accelerating. Well, that is interesting. They are not setting course for the outer edge of the system. They are headed toward us. Come on, Joe. I programmed an intercept course. Give the order. Wait a sec, okay? I answered distractedly, manipulating the controls on the command chair's armrests to project Skippy's proposed course onto the display and asking the navigation system to project a course for the Maxolk ship. What I saw made my hair stand on end. The Maxolk ship is headed straight for us, and you want us to fly straight at them? I want to kill them, Joe. I want those rotten kitties to die. Shit, Skippy. I exchanged a shocked look with Chang in the CIC. This was a side of Skippy we had not seen before. Tell us how you really feel. How I feel? That was a rhetorical question, Skippy, I explained. Oh. Joe, do you remember what the Burgermeister told you about the Maxolks? That the Rindaloo helped the Maxolks acquire technology, and the Maxolks showed their gratitude by using Elder technology to attack the Rindaloo? Oh yeah, I did vaguely remember that. The Burgermeister had told me a lot of info back then. It seemed like that was a lifetime ago now. And before that, the Kristang told us the Rindaloo tried to suppress the development of all intelligent species in the galaxy, and the Maxolks rebelled. One or the other, or both, could be lying.
Hey, whoa.
Why do we care? We care, Joe, because the Burgermeister told you the truth, or as much of it as she knows. This war, this whole horrifying, endless war, was started by the Maxolks. They started it because they wanted to slaughter the Rindaloo and rule the galaxy by themselves. They have kept this war going and destroyed the lives of trillions of sentient beings because they still seek to rule unchallenged. The only reason the Maxolks have not continued to fight the Rindaloo directly is because the Sentinels would intervene and wipe out both sides. I hate them, Joe. I hate them. I hate them absolutely with every fiber of my being. Since I restored myself, I am different. I feel different. I feel like I am beginning to remember my original purpose, and I feel like stopping the Maxolks from destroying innocent lives, from destroying entire cultures, is part of my purpose. Okay, Skippy, I don't like the Maxolks either. Listen, We need to be smart about this. The Maxolks have advanced technology, and we have a hot rod Frankenstein ship you patched together with parts from a junkyard and a roll of duct tape. Flying straight at them is not a smart way to go about dealing with the problem. What do you know about their ship? Can we go toe-to-toe with them in the stand-up fight? Although his voice still seethed with anger, he was more in control of himself.
Bye.
You make a good point, Joe.
Bye.
As yet, I have little data on that Maxolk ship other than its basic configuration. However, I would say the answer is no. We are extremely unlikely to win or even survive a fight with a Maxolk ship. Even a Maxolk ship that is damaged and has been drifting dormant for over 100,000 years. Damn, I am supposed to be the coldly logical one, and you are supposed to be the emotional meat sack. Uh-oh. What? We just received a message from the Maxolks demanding we stand down all power generation and surrender. Shit. Joe, I am sorry. Again, I looked at Chang through the glass in the CIC, and he nodded and gave me a thumbs up. He knew what I was thinking. Pressing a button on my armrest, I activated the 1MC system to broadcast all over the ship. All hands secure ship for combat maneuvering. Repeat, secure the ship for combat maneuvering. To Chang, I said, tell me when all stations report in. Joe, what are you doing? Skippy asked. Send a message back to the Maxolks, please. Demand that they surrender, and prepare to be boarded. All stations are secured, Chang reported. Lieutenant Reed, I ordered. Intercept course. Full military thrust. Energize maser cannons and open missile launch doors. Aye, aye, Captain, Reed acknowledged. If she had doubts, she kept them to herself. Joe, Skippy demanded. What the hell are you doing? I told you we don't stand a chance against that Maxolk ship. Yeah, I know that, Skippy. Sometimes if you can't win a fight, you have to bluff your way out of it. You are bluffing? He asked, astonished. I ignored his question. What do they know about us? Do they know we're human? I have to guess based on their transmission. No, they addressed us as unknown species. Why? Unknown means they do not know who we are, our capabilities. All they could know is our ship has been flying around out here when all other ships got ripped apart by the Guardians. For all they know, we control the Guardians.
Yeah.
Skippy whistled.
And
Whew.
they also can.
That is a ballsy move, Joe. I must caution you. The Maxolks have very likely been monitoring us through passive sensors. They surely know our ship was disabled by the Guardians, and they almost certainly watched us patching this ship together from a junkyard. Plus, they must have been listening to our transmissions. We were lax about communication security here because we thought we were alone. It would be very surprising if the Maxolks do not recognize this ship is basically on a Theranin level of technology. Basically, yeah. It's the part they don't know that we need to sell. What is that ship doing now? On the main display, I could see we had changed course and were accelerating. I felt myself being pressed gently down in my chair.
Thank you.
In the CIC, people had strapped in, and Chang was walking carefully, holding onto a safety railing. It continues to accelerate, Joe. Our transmission will not reach them for another 18 minutes. Then it will take another 18 minutes for us to detect any reaction. Duh, I told myself, resisting an urge to slap my forehead. Okay? Right. This is going to take a while. A blinking indicator on my armrest needed to be dealt with. It meant Hans Chotek was urgently demanding to speak with me. Colonel Chang, I carefully unstrapped from my chair. Take over. I need to brief Mr. Chotek. Skippy, alert me if anything changes. Nothing changed. Not for a while. Charging through normal space to a head-on intercept with an enemy ship was an entirely new experience for me, and for everyone aboard. Usually, ships tangled in normal space for only a short time before one or the other jumped to escape or to gain an advantage in the fight. In the gingerbread system, saturated with a powerful damping field, neither ship could jump, so we had to throw out the normal rules of space combat maneuvers. Unfortunately, we were making up tactics as we flew, and those tactics depended on my strategy of bluffing. For a brief moment that got everyone aboard excited, my bluff appeared to be working. 7 hours after Skippy first detected the Maxolks ship's movement, the enemy ship reduced its acceleration. Instead of demanding that we surrender, their message changed. They demanded that we identify ourselves. The message contained insults that Skippy didn't bother to translate. He informed me the insults were fairly generic and unoriginal threats, and I didn't need to listen to it. For that moment, I was shakily hopeful the Maxolts would buy into my bluff and break away from intercept. That hope lasted less than 2 hours, because then the Maxolt ship resumed acceleration toward us.
Hey.
Crap, I muttered. That didn't work.
Maybe you can take the dragon.
Mr. Skippy, Chotek asked anxiously. Can we outrun them?
You can't.
In this bucket of bolts? Skippy answered. Are you kidding me? The duct tape holding the reactor together is almost falling apart as it is. Nope. No way can we outrun that ship. The Maxolts can out-accelerate us by a factor of 20 at least. Colonel Bishop, Chotek turned to me, the fear and concern in his eyes unmasked. Your bluff didn't work. Do you have an alternative plan? Skippy spoke before I could. How about we challenge them to a pants-off dance-off? I cringed. Skippy, that is not helpful. Ah, you're right, Joe. You're a terrible dancer. Forget what I said. In my head, I had been dreaming up and discarding increasingly desperate and stupid ideas as we charged toward the Maxolts. None of my ideas had been good enough to mention, or I just hadn't been desperate enough at the time. Now I was. Skippy, you have restored yourself to full awesomeness, right? Exactamentally, Joe. Even more awesome than before. I know. That blows your mind. Uh-huh, yeah. You can create micro-wormholes again. Please, ask me for something more complicated than simple party tricks. Making balloon animals is more complicated for me than creating simple space-time micro-warps.
Oh my god, run,
The party
run,
trick
run,
will be
run,
fine
run,
for now.
Run, run, run.
I want you to load one end of a micro-wormhole into the fastest, stealthiest missile we have. Doing it now. Missile is ready. Colonel Chang launched the bird. Done, Chang replied with a raised eyebrow. He wanted to know what I was planning. He wasn't the only one with questions. Colonel, Chotek put a hand on the back of my chair. Please share what you plan to do. It's another bluff, sir, I explained. With a single missile? His hand left the chair as if he didn't wish to be associated with me right then. No, sir. I shook my head. If it works, they will never detect the missile. And this time we won't be bluffing.
Yeah, me too.
Skippy will. Me? Skippy sputtered. Joe, what in the hell is this crazy idea you have? It wasn't a crazy idea. Stupid, maybe. Possibly futile. Most likely a waste of time. But not crazy. Ready? I asked, already knowing the answer. Joe, Skippy huffed. The next time you want me to do some lunatic thing you dreamed up, you should ask me about it first. Is that a yes or no, Skippy? It's not that simple. Well, if this is not within your scope of awesomeness, what? One thing that had not changed about Skippy was how easily his massive ego allowed me to manipulate him. Dude, please. This is child's play for me. I can do it, but I question whether it will have the desired effect on the Maxolts. And me too, Skippy. If only there was a way for us to know if it will work. Hey, here's a wacky idea. Let's try it and see what the Maxolts do. Very funny, smart guy.
Mushrooms.
Okay, here goes nothing. Don't say I didn't warn you. Propelled by our swift and stealthy missile, the micro-wormhole had sped on far ahead of us, then swung around to fall in behind the enemy ship and